Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Day 2 here this week of our live radio presentations on TikTok, on YouTube, and of course, podcasted out. Welcome to the show, everyone. Grab a pen, write down this number, give us a call. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. We have a lot to talk about, as always. There's always something to talk about. And, of course, if there's not, I'll just circle back because there's always new people coming in and checking things out. But so far, so good. It is going to be another packed show. So grab a pen, write it down. Good morning, everybody. 253-263-1540. Good to see y'all. Thank you so much for your support over there on TikTok. The intro feels so empty without Ellis. I really like that. That little hey now from Ellis. But Ellis called in yesterday, and thank you for that. I hope you call in today. Although Laura called in, we did good. But the idea is to talk to you. 253-263-1540. Show your support over on TikTok. It all helps. Now, the phone lines I love, right? Because I could just kind of have my iPad up over here and see what's going on. But I've got notes. Copious notes. All right. First off, I think today I hit the sweet spot with the levels. I'm trying to get the workflow to a point where I can bump out the podcast when the show is over. All right. We'll hang out for a little bit on TikTok once I actually end the live radio show. Yesterday we did a team lift. I think that'll become a regular thing. So there's almost like a little mini after show after the live broadcast. But workflow wise, I've got a mix. Yesterday, though, because I have a mix now and I don't actually have to deal with separated tracks in the editing, because I really don't have to do any editing. I just need to get the thing out. I couldn't mess with the intro, and it was so hot. And I got to tell you, there's a point in my life where I would have lost a lot of sleep over that and tried to figure out something to do or cut it out or re-record it, whatever. I said, you know what, who cares? So I uploaded it. But I feel today that I may have the levels everywhere that may work. And so the thought is, right, is I get out of here and I dump this thing and I'll jump in my car and I'll go to the park after the show today, right? I wanted to do that yesterday. But, I had orders to fulfill. Folks were so generous with the Joe Coconut order, so all of those went out yesterday. And I spent some time booking guests. I already have, after Thanksgiving, some fantastic guests lined up for you, okay? And we're not talking Disney. We're talking journalists. We're talking influencers. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to really start talking about things in a meaningful way. Not just me sitting here talking to you, but sitting here talking to other people, learning things together, exploring things together. And, of course, there will always be the Disney of it all. And I reached out to so many people yesterday, and I often don't take the time to utilize the resources at my disposal. I have a couple different tools that give me access to phone numbers and email addresses. So I reached out to some folks. Some folks have already said yes. I'm very excited for that because, listen, bringing other folks in here and widening the scope of our conversation is going to be very, very valuable for the future of what I think we're doing here. In fact, it's not that I think what we're doing here. I know what we're doing here. I feel very confident in taking this and moving this forward, both as a podcast on YouTube. Will increase the quality of the video on YouTube over time. But I really do feel like there is intrinsic value in taking the time to sit down and have these conversations. And I'm often reminded how much I am seeking to go beyond that tiny little bubble of Disney content creation. And I don't say that because of the creators. That's a different conversation. I say that because of the people that consume it. And if you think I'm talking about you, and if you think that what I'm about to say is geared towards you, it very well may be, and I apologize. But those who know. The comments on that video that I posted on the People Mover are absurd. And I have like stitching and all that turned off because I don't need people clout chasing me with their dumb videos. So somebody like screen recorded it and even commented that I had that turned off. I didn't watch the video. I don't even want to watch the video because I'm sure it'll just drive me crazy, and then I'll give them attention by talking about them. I don't know, so I don't know who it was. I don't even know what they said. All I see is comments coming in when I open up my phone, I open up my TikTok app, so I immediately close it and put my phone down. But I see a lot of you who have been here with me for a while commenting back, don't waste your breath. Don't waste your breath on these people. They've got nothing going on. If all you can do is cry about an amusement ride, if all you can do is be outraged about the sources relating to quote unquote news surrounding an amusement ride, you really got to check. You got to really check your barometer. You know, thermometer, barometer, maybe check them all. Maybe any instruments of measurement that you may have lying around should be recalibrated. Who cares? I was live in the park. You couldn't have heard it from a better source. I posted it, and I only posted it that fast out of a desire to sort of get the information out before somebody, aped me. So like I did it without thinking. And only because usually what'll happen is somebody will beat me to the punch because I'm too busy being live. So going back to that workflow, I was trying to do something more for me of getting it out there quicker than the next guy because I figured somebody would. Okay, whether from my live or just from general knowledge. But also because from a workflow perspective, I'm pretty sure I can knock out a TikTok while I'm still streaming and nobody will know. And I did. But if I would have stopped to think about it and think about what comments I would get from posting it, I would have never even posted it because I don't care about the clout. I don't care about the views. Once I saw it was actually getting views, my first response was, oh shit, here we go. A bunch of useless comments. Here we go. Who cares? You know what? I hope they don't even close it now. Now I hope you're mad that it's open because that's how out of this universe some of you all are. And that is not a compliment. Don't take it as one. I hope the ride stays open, so now you're mad the ride is open. That's what I hope. That's me. Sorry. You want unfiltered, you're getting it. I just think it's absurd to be that. Why can't you care about something that actually, why can't you care about something that actually means something? Yeah, within our bubble, it's an update. Hey, check it out. This ride's closing, heads up. And that's all I was doing. But I wish there was that much, passion for something of meaning. Where was that passion for helping out the hurricane victims, both here in Florida and in North Carolina? Where was the passion for that? I know there was from our smaller community for sure. But where was that? Where was that in the Disney bubble of whatever content creators / consumers? Where was it? No, none. The outcry over a video about a ride closing, that's how you know. And that's why for me, in many ways, I need to do this because I need to start talking about things of value. Yeah, listen, I want to save rivers of America, but that is not a real fight. That is a fight within the context of a theme park, right? And it's a fight worth fighting. I absolutely believe it because I believe in it from a business perspective too, not just a, whatever, just like a upset Disney adult perspective. I believe in that from a business perspective. There's a sound theme. There's a sound ideology. Forget theme, it's ideology. There's a sound principle to what goes on there in Liberty Square and Frontierland and all of that. It is part of what Walt set out to create as a distinguishing factor. But all of that to say, crying about a theme park ride, generally speaking, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like the people that are still online crying about Splash Mountain, get over yourselves. Nobody's got a bigger Brer Rabbit collection than me, but get over yourselves. Who cares? Move on. And like I said the other day, the reason Disney doesn't really listen to this stuff is because it's all at the same volume. People are crying over my People Mover video like I shut the ride down myself. It's just when all of the outrage, now let's just talk about this from the broader perspective, but when everybody's level of outrage is at the same level, it makes it really hard to tell when something is really, with merit. So whatever. Personally, I don't care. I wasn't even really reading the comments. It's just people started sharing whatever video somebody made. I don't care. I really don't care. Good morning, Gretchen. Nice to see you. Gretchen, this is a show. Are you sure you're in the right place? And so for me, it's just kind of like, I love Disney and I love sharing it with the people that get it. There's a lot of us that are very like-minded, but when it comes to the general Disney content consumer, I really want nothing to do with it. At this point in the game, I really want nothing to do with it. I want to focus on larger, more meaningful dialogue. Point blank, period. I'll talk to you about Disney all day long. I love Disney. That's my escape. I get it. It's cool. But there's a balance there. Like we keep saying, everything in moderation. There are reoccurring themes on this show. Everything in moderation. Everything's a scam. There are reoccurring themes on this show. Speaking of everything is a scam, and I jokingly say that, but in many ways it's true. People are still like completely upset about this Netflix thing. I mean, it's unbelievable. And people are calling this fight rigged. And I'm like, it's sports entertainment. Rigged is strong. Produced, yes. Produced, yes. Now you can ask yourself, is it fair if it's produced, meaning that there's probably a set outcome or at least a script or an outline of a script? Should people be betting on it? I don't know. That seems a little manipulative, but people are still crying about the fight being rigged, not about the poor quality of the signal. So just kind of funny. Reoccurring themes in this podcast. Influence is another one, And the more we do this, the more it all starts to make sense for me, because part of me just sort of follows this feeling. I had this feeling for months that I needed to do this, and I started setting up this equipment and getting the kind of things in order, and then like something just starts to move me and I just start doing it. And then the response is the thing that keeps me going. And the response to this has been so positive, But whoever made that video, thank you. Thank you for the friendly reminder that there's a reason that I keep all of that at an arm's length. Okay. Because I'm not going to let y'all ruin it for me. I love Disney too much. It means too much to me personally. It's connected to me in more ways than I will ever explain, because I don't need everybody to know everything. But so it means a lot to me. And but some of those people out there, you're so capable of ruining it, and you so miss what it's about. So many of these quote unquote, and I don't even care for it, but so many of these quote unquote Disney adults and so many of these quote Disney content creators totally miss the mark. They don't even get what it's about. I'm in the park the other day and like waiting to do the parade in the hub, and there's a move that I do where I know if I wait in a certain area at a certain point, they're going to let people move up. But I hang back. So I let all the kids go first. I'm not going to get in front of a bunch of little kids trying to watch the parade in Disney World. What's wrong with you? So I hang back. And the cast member starts to motion to me like, you can come forward. I'm like, no, let the kids go first. She's like, they've waited long enough, but that's very nice of you. Thank you for thinking that way, And it bothers me that that's an anomaly. So many of these quote unquote Disney adults totally don't get what it's about. They completely miss the entire idea. Okay? Not just the creators, another loose terminology, but the consumers. They totally miss what it's about. some of the biggest, whatever. Like arguably sites like DFB have lost the mark a long time ago. I used to love DFB. You lost it a long time ago. When you started referring to Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor as MILF for short, I'm out. You've lost the mark. All right? I don't know. I don't know if it's just because more people generally care more about the pursuit of views and the pursuit of clicks and all of this, that everything else suffers or becomes secondary. But like, in no way should anybody creating content in the park be prioritized over kids and families having an experience. That's all there first. The only reason you're there and able to create your content is because they are subsidizing it. (253-263-1540). I'm sure you've all got stories. I'm sure you've all seen prime examples. You know, that's why, like, when I do stream fireworks, and I don't stream them like I used to because there's so many people that do shows, I'm like, you all go do the work for me. You know what I mean? I got bigger fish to fry. I'm growing a media empire. But, you know, so people will get bent out of shape because somebody will put their kid on their shoulders. Like it's ruining the shot. Yeah, it's annoying, but that's what they're there for. The park, unfortunately, has become a content creator playground. You know, that's problematic. But that video the other day, let me tell you something. When I started to see that, and then particularly saw whatever that person, quote unquote, stitched, because it wasn't a stitch, like, get a life. Get a life. Do something with yourself. Do something with yourself. Take off the mouse ears for 5 minutes. I guarantee you 90+% of these quote unquote Disney content creators don't even have stock in the company. You're running around promoting the company. You probably don't even have stock in the company. And you're a bonehead because now the stock is up. So even if you're griping about the company, I'm sitting here telling you everything that bothers me about the company, and I'm laughing all the way to the bank because the stock is up. Okay, so I mean, I'm being transparent about it, right? Like, I don't like everything the company's doing, but I got my money where my mouth is. And I respect the guest experience. So I don't even know what that video, I mean, this is me ranting without watching the video. Imagine what I would say if I watched the video, because I'm sure, you know, whatever. Like, check your source. Give me a break. It was from a People Mover Operations cast member. Leave me alone. So I'm basically arguing with the video I never watched. 253-263-1540. Give me a call. And thank you for contributing to the gift goal on TikTok. That's going to help out a lot. At the end of the radio presentation, I'll cut all of this. I'll cut the YouTube. I'll cut the mixer here, the podcast recording. And we'll do a team lift at the end of the show. All right. But I'm here to talk to you. So feel free to derail me at any point in the conversation. I did put up on Instagram a comment box. You know, Kenzie had set something up as a Google form, which went out on the newsletter. And I thought, let me do something on Instagram. So whether you're on the newsletter or Instagram, you can submit questions that way. I'm not really looking at the chat right now because I'm trying to kind of do the radio thing. It's a very different pace. You know, when you do radio, it's kind of like keeping the ball in the air. But you can submit questions that way. So I have a couple of those. We'll talk about those in a minute too. So it's on the newsletter. It's currently on my Instagram stories. Make sure you're following there as well as YouTube. All right. So one of these questions, and I have so much to talk about today, and I have this list here, but as I start talking, I kind of go where the conversation takes me, because otherwise, so this first question here, that's a rhetorical otherwise, by the way. I'm going to try to work with this way. What will happen to Muppet Vision 3D? I hesitate because what do I know? What do I know what's going to happen with Muppet Vision 3D? But you're asking me, so I'm going to address it. You know, the thought is that this Monsters, Inc. land is going to either replace Muppet Vision or it's going to go in where the launch bay is. Now, since I've been here for the last, 3.5 plus years, it's been understood that launch bay was just waiting to be redesigned, reconceived, reconceptualized. I remember having conversations in the very early days with cast members there saying that they didn't know what they wanted to do with it, meaning at the higher levels, nobody had really determined what to do with it yet. So you would logically think, and if you start to look at some of the concept art, which really means nothing in the grand scope of things, we have to be reasonable about that. You would think it would make perfect sense to put it there. You get rid of Disney Junior Dance Party. Maybe you move that somewhere else. Okay. And I don't know what you do because the Little Mermaid, they just reworked all that. That's right at the front there. I don't know how that exists. Maybe they can pull it off. But then what you would do is, in theory, is you would make all that Monsters Inc. However, I think, unfortunately, based off of decisions that have been made and announcements that have been made and the silence around where they're opting to do this, that they are probably going to get rid of the Muppets Courtyard. And also because that's right over there by the parking lot, right? So I just think it gives them a little more freedom. You know, I think they have offices back there behind what was the tram stop, which is the launch bay. So I don't know what they're going to do over there. It makes logical sense to use the dead area. I'm just afraid that the current decision makers don't use logical sense, which means they'd be willing to get rid of the Muppets. And what would then happen? Absolutely nothing. And I've been thinking about this. Would the Jim Henson family buy back the Muppets? I know disconnecting the Muppets as a whole is probably an insurmountable task. You know, disconnecting a brand like that is a big deal. But then again, how much would it really take to disconnect the Muppets from Disney? You know, so I just wonder. I just wonder if Henson could do better with the Muppets on their own, or if somebody like a Netflix could buy. Like, Netflix shouldn't buy the Muppets. It's just an example. But like, is there a better place for the Muppets? You know, and if they wipe that out, you know, could that live somewhere? You know, would that live? It's almost like a museum piece. I'm sorry, but Muppet Vision 3D is almost like something that should be in the Smithsonian as far as I'm concerned. You know? 253-263-1540. Thank you, Kenzie. Good morning. You know, Kenzie and I do the podcast on the weekends, and I have like all these things to talk about with you, but there's things that I specifically want to talk to Kenzie about. And even though, again, it's, you know, Disney is supposed to be the thing, this whole entire concept for the podcast, even before Kenzie got involved, was about influence and talking to content creators and interviewing people. And it's grown so far. But you got to go listen to the last episode that Kenzie and I did. You know, since she's joined me as a co-host, we have not had any interview subjects on yet. All right, so it's just us hanging out and talking. But the amount of things we talked about on last week's episode in relationship to the consumer marketplace as a whole, it was really fascinating because, you know, there's an agenda of things to talk about. But again, one of the reoccurring themes that you'll hear out of my mouth time and time again here is that the more you look at it, the more you realize things are very connected at the top. There's not a lot going on at the top. There's less and less at the top than there's ever been. Less companies, less power brokers. Just when you start to talk about everything, you know, and I can't wait to start bringing people into interview along these lines. And one of the guests I booked yesterday is going to be such a value add for that conversation. I may even do that interview as a standalone interview, you know, podcast it out like we've done with like Eugenia and Tori in the Oz vlog, who was also fantastic. I got to get her back on. But I think I might do it that way as like a sit down and maybe have Kenzie there for that, do that. And then, so just do, because you have to, I think doing that kind of interview in the live environment, unless they just kind of call in as sort of like an addendum to a full on interview. Because I could sit down, this particular person is a journalist who has gone out on their own. And there's so many things I want to talk about. A lot of it actually related to business and technology and the internet. And so I just think having these longer form conversations, as I've said time and time again, are a real value add. A real value add. We can run around the parks all day long. They're always going to be there. But having these long form conversations, and especially bringing in fresh voices and getting outside of this bubble, I'm telling you, we're going to do this together. Give us 1 year. We're going to be on the podcast charts. You're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Royce. It's Andrew from New Jersey. I don't know if you remember me from last week.
Andrew, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
It was really a lot of fun talking to you last week about when you and I were talking about what Disney could do better with Star Wars.
Oh, my gosh. And that list goes on and on and on. Always Star Wars news.
Yeah. I was going to say that it's sad that it has to come to this of what Disney is going to think about doing and where they're going to put Monsters, Inc. You know, like you said, I wish that Disney can handle the Muppets better, but it would be more logical to put Monsters, Inc. where Star Wars Launch Bay is. But I don't know. I just don't think. I just think there's so much more that they could do for Hollywood studios because, in all honesty, I think it's slowly but surely becoming more of a dead park.
Well, yeah. And I think, trying to manage the levels here. I think what they need to do is make a Pixar land, whether they just do it by default or actually theme it as such is a different story. But you could take that back area behind Galaxy's Edge, right? Put Cars over there, and then you could connect that through to Toy Story. So Cars to Toy Story, and then take the Launch Bay area and make that Monsters. And now essentially you have a horseshoe going behind Hollywood studios that would be Pixar.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
I don't understand the ad hocing of IP. I just don't get why do you put a little bit here and a little bit there? Universal's doing that with Harry Potter, and it's very overt why they're doing it. They want you to go to every one of their parks. If you love Harry Potter, that's the biggest thing Universal's got going. So they want you to go to every single park in Orlando. So they put a little Harry Potter everywhere. But like a little Moana in Animal Kingdom, a little Moana in Epcot, it doesn't make sense. So like having Cars crammed into the Magic Kingdom, it just doesn't make sense. Like put some theme into it.
Well, I think it speaks volume, and I think we did talk about this last week about how Disney, they care more about IP rather than having any originality. They can't come up with something original that would be appealing to people to go to the park.
Which is so short term, because if you actually invested in original storytelling, you would create new IP in the long term.
Right, exactly.
I don't know. Management is so short-sighted.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, the park, or not just park, the company itself is moved so far away from what Walt Disney himself had envisioned it to be.
But there are so many people that will tell you that doesn't matter anymore, and that things are supposed to change. And there's so many people who even represent themselves as Disney content creators who will argue the fact that, Walt's business principles weren't gospel. And nobody's saying that they are, but there's a reason why the company is what it is. And there was a moment in time where the company had lost its way pre-Michael Eisner and Frank Wells, and this is almost repetitive, despite the size of the company being different. This moment in time is almost the same. You know, the Nelson Peltz hostile acquisition attempt very much reminds me of everything that went down with Roy Disney and Stanley Gold and that whole endeavor pre-Eisner. Because if Eisner didn't come in, the company was on the chopping block. Seems that they don't learn from their own history. They're sitting on a treasure trove. They could create original stories and still mine IP. They can have their cake and eat it too because of the scope of the company, the amount that they have in their arsenal.
Yeah, I agree. Now, it's funny that Hollywood studios, they've taken so much away from it that the park itself has lost its theme, and that you don't even know what it is supposed to be for anymore, because Hollywood Studios was essentially supposed to be all about the love of filmmaking, especially with the Great Movie Ride, and, you know, reflecting on the golden age of Hollywood. But now that they've removed that and the studio backlot tour, I don't know about you, but I'm old enough to remember when Hollywood Studios used to be called MGM Studios, and I don't know what more that they can offer. I mean, unless they have something like Avengers related, I mean, what else could you see that they could do to spark more interest into it?
Well, look, first of all, I do remember it well. I spent a lot of my time there as a kid. It is the product. MGM Studios was supposed to be, it wasn't supposed to be, it was the winner in the arms race, because Eisner came from Paramount. Eisner knew that Universal was going to break ground in Orlando and develop a theme park, a movie studio theme park. Okay. Which ironically, when Universal did do it, they didn't have a lot of studio going on at the time and he got a lot of flack for this because he stole, in theory, you know, private information, private documentation. But MGM Studios was an arms race, and he purposely crowbarred production into MGM Studios so Disney could have a functioning movie studio for the public to visit, so they didn't have to go to Universal. Okay? That was the logic. Now, they've both lost their way over time, and many productions were crowbarred down at MGM. I know people that worked on productions that were sent to Disney World because Disney World wanted productions, and they burned millions, never shot anything, and then went somewhere else and did the production. Big hit shows, you all know. But it was always about, like, get them to Disney World, you know, because it was a value to have that studio there and not lose people to Universal. That was what Eisner was chasing. And yes, they've lost that theme. Universal has as well. Now, ironically, Hollywood Studios looks like it's trying to be California Adventure, because California Adventure found its way only through a multi-billion-dollar retheming. But Studios feels more like a watered-down version of California Adventure. And I don't know what you do about it. They're certainly not going to go back to the movies. I think at this point, you just kind of take that and run with it, right? So you do that Pixar thing I was talking about. I think Indiana Jones Stunt Show should move to Animal Kingdom, and you can bring in a Marvel or Star Wars stunt show. I know people don't want more Star Wars. Marvel's a tough one to crack because of the agreement with Universal. So yeah, you could do Guardians, but how much Guardians do we need? And also, I'm sorry, but these actors, and no disrespect to the cast members trying to earn a wage, they're not the casting directors, they're just getting paid. But these actors they hire for these Marvel characters in Disneyland and the few that have come to Disney World, it's cosplay at best. At least when they hire, you know, a princess, and excuse me if there's kids listening, you know, at least when the princesses are there, you know, they're the real princesses. But like you look at like this Star-Lord that comes to Epcot, I'm like, who is that? Who is that guy? He looks like a Family Guy character with a King of the Hill mustache. Who is he? It's not Star-Lord. So I don't really want them to lean too much into that. Like give me masked characters. Like that's what's fun about superheroes, right? Give me the Spider-Mans, but they can't do it. They can't do it right now. What they should do is they should create a deal where and I don't think Universal wants the Simpsons much anymore, but they should have done a deal where they let them have the Simpsons in exchange for rights to Marvel. And then they could have done more of a Marvel injection into studios. But either way you slice it, studios is becoming the IP park. They all are, but
yeah, I wish in some way, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if many people will agree with me, but wouldn't it be cool, and Universal could do this too, if they built a park based on their original ride, that's based on the old ride, and see how much attraction that would gain.
I've been saying that for the longest time, that they should build a Walt Disney's World's Fair, sort of like a yesteryear park, and take all of their retired attractions and put them there. And because it would be a World's Fair theme, you could constantly rotate attractions, right? You would design it in such a way that every few years you'd be refreshing it because it would be a World's Fair, right? And now you could bring back stuff like the Great Movie Ride. You could bring back stuff that was at the 65 World's Fair, all right? And you could actually you could revitalize different and because they would only be sort of like short term, you could design it that way, and you could actually make money knowing that it's controlled. Like, hey, we're not putting in permanent stuff here, right? Like, think of this again as a World's Fair, as an actual like roving carnival. The World's Fair attractions traveled. I mean, some of those attractions went from New York to Anaheim to Orlando. The Carousel of Progress has got more miles on it than some people's cars. So they can do it. Great. I love it. I love that idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I always felt like there was a need to do sort of like a throwback park because it solves a few problems. It allows them to keep advancing, but also kind of keep a foot in the nostalgia. And they have the land, but they can't afford a fourth gate anyway at the current moment. They can't operate what they've got. We're gonna get some anonymous cast members calling in at some point, and again, I may even do those as standalones just to sort of, be safe about it. But I'm telling you, if they opened up a gate right now, they'd flop because it would be an operational nightmare for them. They don't even have the wherewithal to maintain what they've got at the moment.
Yeah, have you noticed that a lot of the rides are breaking down more often nowadays? I don't remember ever being like that.
Listen, here's what I'm gonna do, Andrew. I'm gonna tell you a story here. I'm gonna put you on hold for a second just because I'm playing with these levels here. I'm running my own live mix. It's a lot of fun. So you're there, but I just can't hear you as I tell this story. So but you're there. For the longest time, was hearing the Aladdin Magic Carpets squeak when I was streaming in the early days. For the longest time, I would hear them squeak. Hydraulics, I would hear them squeak. Everybody jokes they need WD-40. That's not right, but whatever. So when I finally got the job as a ride tech, and I was in training with one of the gentlemen who built Shanghai, this guy's worked all over Disney World, and him and I got along. He said, Royce, I've seen your videos. Like, oh my gosh, you reinvigorated the magic for me. Like you just relit the magic for me. He's been in the company forever. He doesn't see it the way I looked at it. And I understand that. And I told him about Aladdin's Magic Carpets being squeaky. And he goes, here's your homework. First off, I showed him video because I already had video on my phone. Go there and ask them what's wrong with the ride, so on and so forth. And report back to me and ask them what they, see what they say. So I go And mostly on that attraction are college kids. A lot of young college girls working on that ride. But there's like one older guy. So he was the only guy that really had any answers for me because they were all just kind of like, I don't know, it's broke. And I was like, no, like, okay, it's not really broke because they're on it. Okay, whatever. So, but he was like, listen, the hydraulics need to be lubricated. And I was like, okay, naturally, you can, why haven't they been? And by the way, I didn't even tell this guy anything. Like, I think at some point I let him know that I was a ride tech in training and all this. But he goes, because they just don't want to do it. So he's telling me this without even knowing, where I'm coming from with the ask. But he was like, the hydraulics, and this is my like first year of streaming because I left somewhere in like month 18 or something like that, right? So it had been months of squeaking. Yeah, they don't want to lubricate the hydraulics. To this day, almost 4 years later, they are still squeaking. To this day, I went back. I told him. He picked up the phone. He called down to the Magic Kingdom. And I don't know why they're still squeaking. And if lubricating the hydraulics didn't get it done and there's another issue, I never got an answer on it. But I can just tell you that the answer that I was given was pure and simple. They don't want to do it.
Smile.
That's not how you run a company.
No, it's not.
So, to expand, you can't even handle what you've got. The reason they want to get rid of Tom Sawyer Island and the rivers of America is laziness. They want to get rid of it because operations doesn't want to deal with it. It's too much work for them. Well, then get somebody else who's willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Anyway, Andrew, thank you for calling in. Do you have another question for me before I let you go?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, wouldn't it just be easier for them to convert the Speedway into the Cars attraction and make it a little easier for them?
There's not enough space. It doesn't fit theme-wise. Not that it fits where it's going. It just doesn't make sense to crowbar that in there. I mean, if they're going to get rid of it, first of all, I love the Speedway as a classic attraction. I get upgrading it. There's no reason to make that Cars. I would rather see that just be like, I like the idea of having a few things floating around in the park that don't tie to IP, like the Astro Orbiters. So maybe you just retheme them with like futuristic looking cars or something, but they don't have to be cars. I mean, God forbid if you did it right, somebody could make a movie around whatever you retheme that to. You could go the other way with it. That's what worked for Pirates. But the company's lost. All they're doing now is it's Frozen, it's Moana, it's rinse, repeat. Frozen, Moana, rinse, repeat. I love both of those, but that's not a solution. The risk to invest, and part of the other thing is, and this is going to come up later when we talk about AI, part of it is the distribution windows ruining filmmaking. So it's easier, as you probably know, to put out a 4-quadrant motion picture like the Avengers, knowing that it's going to have global appeal, than it is to put out a Pulp Fiction and know that you're going to recoup some of that in DVD so that you can actually make up, the financing. Like, in other words, if you lose a revenue stream like that, then you do lose some of the calculation and risk. I heard Matt Damon talk about that on an old clip, but I came across it when I was doom scrolling one night, and he talked about that.
Yeah, he did.
You take DVD revenue out of the equation, and that's a huge piece of the pie. And when you used to be able to finance a movie by pre-selling markets. So even if I'm a large company, they use shingles. A lot of people don't understand how this works, but a large company generally isn't going out there and making a movie as themselves. They're going to set up an entity. They may even have a tax shelter. Okay. They're going to sell windows is what the terminology is. So they're going to sell the second window. There may be a third window they sell. They're going to sell the windows, and that's distribution into different territories. But all of that has basically, much like the music industry got wiped out by Napster, all of that has been wiped out by the streaming market. And that's why that's why companies have spent billions upon billions of dollars in the streaming's arms race. Because they're trying to capture the people signing up for the access. And they know that you're going to sign up for one over here, maybe one over there. So if they can give you a reason to sign up for them, they're going to. But in order to do that, now instead of broadly appealing to somebody, or broadly appealing to the market, I should say, they've got to appeal to niche. However, what do you say? Niche? Who cares? I say niche. But you got to appeal to niche. So now when you log onto your Netflix and I log onto my Netflix, we're going to get served up very different things from the algorithm because they want me to stay there. So they're going to show me the things that are valuable to me and the things that you think are valuable to you. The downside to that is then you don't get to see things you never thought you never knew existed. You know? So now not only are you not getting original storytelling in the theatrical, right? You're just getting more and more of the same. But even on these streaming platforms, you're getting stuff that's all done based off of data. You know, why do you think there's so many crime, murder, mystery shows on Netflix? Because people watch that crap. And it's cheap to produce. So who's going to take the risk? That's my question for you, Andrew. Who's going to take the risk? It's not going to be a big company. It's going to be an independent, right?
Yep.
And do they even need to anymore? Somebody I know told me that I should just stick to doing lowbrow because it's easier for the cash grab. I just don't have the soul for it. You know? In this world, that's all it is, man. Eat the hot potato chip and watch you throw up and get tens of millions of views, and everybody does the trend. You remember that chip? What was it? The hottest chip ever? That dumb kind of crap. That's the world we live in. So is there even is there even room for somebody to make a movie like The Green Mile, which isn't even, it's based off of something. It's still based off of IP. It's not even a purely original story. It's based off of a true story. But so even as I point to that example, it's still rooted in IP, but there's no room for it. You're not going to get a Good Will Hunting, all right? You're not going to get a Usual Suspects. You're not even going to get a Dark Crystal, okay? You're not going to get any of this stuff anymore. The only way you're going to get a Dark Crystal nowadays is if somebody like Netflix makes it because they think that there's, again, the data shows there's an opportunity there, and then they're immediately going to cut it off when the data proves them wrong. So it's not like they're making it for creative endeavor, for a creative reason. Not that it's a business, so not that that's always going to be first. Like I said the other day, this creative business that is known as Hollywood is not driven by creativity. It's driven by economics, as it should be. But, nobody's hiring somebody to make a hit TV show. They're hiring them to fill airtime. If it's a hit, it's gravy. They're getting their ad money either way. So I don't know.
Right.
I think in many ways, unless it all implodes completely, there's a lot of examples I can think of which inadvertently involve controversial folks, and I often question if they're controversial because the system chewed them up for breaking it. Louis C.K. comes to mind. Louis C.K. was doing stand-up specials that he was emailing people links to on his website, and he was making millions of dollars breaking the system. I'm not saying that's why he got canceled, but I just think of a guy like that, and you're like, oh, wow, well, the system chewed him up and spit him out because he broke it in many ways. Controversial guy, did a lot of things shouldn't have done, different conversation, but from the business side, the man broke the mold very early on.
What do you think? Do you think it's generational kind of talent where the newer generation isn't as talented as the original, as as the original people who created the original content, because it's already been made, and that talent like that just sometimes just can't be replicated.
Well, for the most part, you're born with a talent. Unlike, you can be born with intellect, but you can also learn. I think talent, it's, even if you are learning, it's something within. It's handed down to you. So whether that's something that is generation to generation slowly being watered down, slowly being depleted, I don't know. I can certainly say that from my vantage point, when I look at what's out there and what's being deemed successful, the Kai Cenats of the world, what does he do all day long? He just sits there. He's not even gaming, and he's making bank, and people are giving him money. But what I really see is direct to consumer, right? So through my business lens, I stop and I go, okay, he's not being creative, but it's direct to consumer. So if somebody like that can make that kind of money doing nothing, imagine what somebody could do if they were doing something. It's a lot harder, and it's got to break through, and it's a lot harder to break through because everything is short form and everything is cynical. But imagine how much success one could have if they broke through doing something of value. And I guess I'm talking about the live space as a whole, because sitting here and talking for 4 hours like this, 3.5 hours, is not easy to do. Most people, there'd be a lot of dead air. They don't understand the nature of the beast. I was raised on talk radio, and I feel like it's a dying art form, if not completely dead. And what I like about it is it becomes one long fireside chat in a world of scrolling and commenting and moving on. I'd like to believe that there's hope for quality content. When it's all said and done, good stories always break through. The problem is who's backing them. So I think it's actually going to be less about that and more about the big money. Who's going to take the financial risk, right? Who's going to say, let's invest in quality storytelling? I love Star Wars, but how much more Star Wars do I need? I think the last time you called in, we talked about, I don't know what Star Wars, Andor or something. And, but great. You want to keep mining that stuff? You want to make 10,000 more Marvel shows? Great. But and again, at some point, where's the original stuff? Because the original stuff is going to bring you the new IP. And unless you allow the next Jim Henson to show up onto the scene, unless you allow the next George Lucas, and again, George Lucas wasn't a fresh storyteller. George Lucas took so much of Star Wars from Akira Kurosawa. So you have to allow, creatives to be influenced by each other. You have to allow new stories to be told, even if they are mimicking old stories. But George Lucas was trying to channel Buck Rogers, and so if you look at Akira Kurosawa movies, if you look at The Hidden Fortress, if you look at Seventh Samurai, if you look at Yojimbo, you can literally see the characters that are in Star Wars. Jedi or samurai. The two bumbling sidekicks from Hidden Fortress are 3PO and R2. So I'm not even suggesting that it's completely pure original storytelling, but invest a little bit in something fresh. Spend all this money buying up shit. Spend a little bit of money on some fresh storytelling. But there's no room for it in the marketplace economically.
Yeah.
But we live in a direct-to-consumer world. So the audience has the power to do it, ultimately. But somebody's got to serve it up. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of is maybe Disney announcing that they're creating an indie movie studio, and that would allow creatives to have as much freedom as possible to tell original storytelling. And it wouldn't be that risky to Disney because it would just be a smaller studio.
They have no incentive to do it. So funny enough, and I said earlier in the show today, everything ties back. And I just mentioned Matt Damon, right? And the DVD conversation on Hot Ones. And I told you yesterday we're going to talk AI, and I'm going to play a clip from Ben Affleck. but they're the two that are actually doing it. They started a production company, okay, where the creators participate. Like they're trying to break the system with. They've had several endeavors over the years, but I forget the name of this new one. But they are trying to break it, and they're trying to put it all in the hands of the creator, so that there can be original storytelling, so that there can be the next Good Will Hunting. Funny enough, those two guys are trying. Now, whether they succeed is another story, but at least somebody's trying. And they've been at that table over the years. Do you remember, was it Project Greenlight? I think that was one of their shows back in the day. So they've always been at the forefront of curating original storytellers. But that's what it's going to take, people with money to throw around. It's not going to be a Disney. Disney has no reason to do it. Listen, I've seen the Walt Disney Company's social media department running around the theme park. Do you know they have 8 people to do what I do with one cell phone? They got 8 people. They got an independent film crew to do an Instagram reel. Nobody's got anything else to do. You don't have anything in your inbox sitting in your cubicle. 8 people. And they're all probably making under $17 an hour. Guaranteed. So, like, just Disney's not the place, right? Disney's more of like, no, we just pay somebody to do it on the cheap because it's Disney. So Disney's not even going to invest in original storytelling because they can't control it. And even if they are going to do it, they're not going to do it that way. They're going to get some college kids who are in the park to make crap YouTube content for them. It's the truth. Now, Apple, maybe, right? Because Apple hasn't cracked the market but one show. Apple's an interesting buyer because you got to look at it from the buyer perspective. There are people out there, I can name names, but most of the people watching aren't going to know who I'm talking about. There are risk takers out there that'll play the game. But, you know, it's not going to be first of all, I don't even see where the upside is for Disney anymore. As much as they should be doing it, like they've you know, as much as we sit here and say Disney should lower prices, where's the upside, right? As much as we say Disney should invest in original storytelling, where's the upside? Like, they continue to do all the things that everybody tells them that they shouldn't be doing, and it works for them. The stock price just went up. They're charging $900 to hang out with Princess Tiana at the California Grill, which makes no sense theme-wise, on New Year's Eve, and people will pay it. So Disney continues to gouge, and as much as I'm against it, and I think that there is a ceiling there, they will hit that ceiling, they will cap out. There's no incentive to do otherwise across the board. You know, you have original storytellers out there, and then what happens is they get gobbled up anyway, and that's the cycle, and you have to respect that, because who doesn't want to, you know, who doesn't want to make a ton of money? But at least for a minute, like somebody like a Reese Witherspoon was an independent who was out there doing her thing, you know, and she was highlighting female voices and female storytellers and doing her thing. But she's a mini studio now. Ironically, it's under Candle Media, which is run by Staggs and Mayer, who came from Disney and launched Disney Plus. Well, Mayer did. Staggs was on the other side. But, you know, so again, everything's connected at the top. My reoccurring theme. Everything's connected. So there are people out there that can do it. You know, everybody hates if I say Joe Rogan's name, and I can't stand that people, you can't even say a name anymore. But look at what this guy's accomplished in the sense of independent media, and look at his weekly content output. I don't listen to the guy. All right. But he's sitting there having conversations, and people are listening. The last straw for me was what transpired over the last couple weeks with the election, because what I saw was that there's a lot of major media outlets out there. Okay, plenty of them. A lot's an understatement. There's an oversaturation of media that is bought and paid for. All right, influenced media at the highest level, right? So traditional media, legacy media, it's all bought and paid for. They all have their narratives, all right? And then what I saw, and again, these aren't new revelations for me, right? But this is me digesting things through my lens of where do I sit and what do I want to do. And then you saw all of this sort of, I don't even want to use the term right leaning because it's not fair, because it just isn't. But you see all this extreme, and it's great that it's long form, but you see all this extreme conversation over here, right? And I don't see any moderate long form discourse. I just don't. I don't see any. I mean, like, where is that conversation? It doesn't exist. I see extreme discourse. And I don't consider Joe Rogan extreme. I like the fact that the guy will have people on and sit him down and talk to them. But the perception of him has become extreme now, right? What I'm hoping to accomplish here, talking to folks like you, and by the way, call in 253-263-1540. I'll talk to you about anything. It doesn't have to be Disney related. In fact, you calling in and giving me an excuse to talk about something else in the world is fantastic for me. But I don't see an opportunity. I see an opportunity. I don't see anyone doing it. So I see an opening, and I have an audience of people that represent all walks of life that are willing to hang out with me and spend time with me in other areas. So why not take the opportunity to start talking about things, even if they're things that people don't want to talk about? I tweeted out a picture the other day of Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all these idiots on Air Force One. And I call them idiots because I just think they're all idiots, okay? It's not a political statement. I just think they're idiots. But I tweeted it out because I wanted to write a bunch of funny shit, because I wanted to solve the problem of doing a thread. I said this the other day. I just wanted to use the mechanism. And I saw the photo, and remember, well, I don't know how old you are, but do you remember Highlights magazine, where you'd find all the things in the frame, and you'd be like, where are they all? And you have to, like a treasure hunt. So I was just like, oh, this is like a funny little thing. Oh my gosh, I lost followers. Like, people, you can't even mention things people don't like. You know? I'm like, me tweeting out this picture wasn't an endorsement. I was just being hyper analytical and making myself laugh by writing some dumb stuff and solving the problem of using a threaded post, because I didn't do that before, and I wanted to see if that got better engagement. I was literally just playing with the machine, and I lost, like, I don't care, but I lost like 3 or 4 followers because people are so sensitive. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So if people don't like what I have to say about anything, whether it's here, whether it's in the middle of me playing Fortnite, whether it's me sitting on the people mover, if people don't like what I have to say, I don't care anymore. Not that I ever really did. I tried to be more careful and more positive in the early days with what I had to say. But this is me. Like, I'm real, and I just say it the way it is. And I just think at this point, if you don't like what I have to say, and I lose you as a viewer and lose you as a listener, then that's not who I want hanging out anyway. And I invite people in that want to sit here and have the conversations even when they aren't easy. You know, we can sit here and talk about whatever we want. That's the beauty of it. And we can go play in the parks, and we can do gaming and Legos. But sitting here and having conversations with folks, and I'm going to keep plowing through on this, and we're going to bring in people that you're going to recognize, and we're going to hear from them, and we're going to have those long-form conversations. But it's going to be through moderate discourse, and it's going to be in a way that's accessible for everybody, and I don't want it to be divisive. You know, I got strong opinions, but look, quite frankly, you know, just to talk about politics for a half a second, I think they're all idiots. Okay, I think they're all idiots, and I think most of us agree. And the two-party system is designed to destroy the middle class and keep us suppressed, keep us divided, keep us fighting against each other. So the whole machine as a whole is broken. You know, and at the end of the day, and I said this 1,000 times over the years during the park lives, the more and more I got comfortable with my audience, the more and more I said it. Everybody wants the same things. It's how we choose to get there. And I don't see the value in vilifying people for having opinions on how we get there. All of this other noise, all of this hate, all of this pollution, there's no room for it. You know? So, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
No problem. Fair.
You know? I'm going to give you the ball one last time, Andrew, and then I'm going to keep moving on because I have another question I got to answer. Although in many ways,
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I pulled my levels down. I said I will give you the ball one more time if you have another question for me, and then I'm going to keep moving on because I do have something else to tackle here from the question box on Instagram.
One question. Are you going to visit Epic Universe to see what kind of competition Disney has? I mean, you don't have to do a live stream about it, but if you visit there and then come back and then give your opinion about it, would you be willing to do that?
I would probably do more of a vlog on it than a live if I was going to do it, just because it'd be more fun to enjoy it that way. Yeah, if I could get in there, but the thing is like getting in there is going to be such a pain in the tuchus, you know? I haven't been to Universal in Orlando since high school. You're going to laugh. I haven't been there since Nickelodeon was there.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I should do it eventually. I should go to Universal just because I should go to Universal. Yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm excited for Epic. I'm excited because it's good for business. It's good for everybody. There's not enough people out there that are going to be like pulled away from Disney because Epic's opening to ruin Disney. Disney can ruin Disney on their own. They're doing a great job. And again, that's only coming from the Disney geeks because the market right now is thrilled with Disney. So I have to sit here and talk out of both sides of my mouth because I'm happy that the stock is up, and I also don't agree with the decisions they're making. So I have to figure out how to reconcile that. You know what I mean? Because the greedy capitalist in me is thrilled that the stock is up. It's about time. Keep going. Papa needs a new beanie. My beanies aren't that expensive. In Japan, the beanies were a little pricey. You could spend $60 for a beanie in Japan, but it was worth it. And then they told me, do you have your passport on you? Because we can give you a tax exemption. I'm like, I don't. You think I just carry my passport with me? That's real secure. Anyway.
Yeah.
I appreciate you calling in. You're a fantastic caller. Keep up the good work. We'll talk to you again soon, sir. Thank you. I have to make sure I don't hang up on myself because there's no way that I can call back in and set up the phone system on the air. You'll hear too much information, PIN codes and things like that. 253-263-1540. What a fantastic caller and a conversationalist. Now, this next question kind of goes right on the heels of what we were talking about. This next question is, will Hollywood ever go back to originality? Why are there so many remakes? And it's exactly what I just said about DVD, about the risk in original storytelling. But I do think there is an opportunity to answer your question. Yes, I think Hollywood can go back to original storytelling, but it's going to take somebody to take the risk. It's going to take somebody, the thing that worked so well for Netflix with Squid Games is they didn't try to do it. And, maybe they were hoping they had it, and then it hit, and then people emulate it, right? And I think until you show somebody that makes financial sense, nobody's going to do it. What that looks like, I do not know. But generally speaking, until you can prove it, it doesn't get done. And, it's kind of funny to bring it back to the theme parks for a second. The only reason Disney made Galaxy's Edge is because of Harry Potter. The guy that spearheaded the Harry Potter project at Universal, nobody wanted him to do it. He fought tooth and nail. I forget how he pulled the money out to do it, from what budget he pulled it from or where and all this. But the guy went to battle for it. It was, even though it wasn't necessarily his money, he was an employee of the company, but they took the risk. They took the risk, and he fought for it. So I think original storytelling can come back when someone proves it. And unfortunately, I think that's more proven on the streaming platforms than it'll ever be done in theatrical. I think if you're asking about theatrical storytelling, that's a hard one. Unless there's like some best-selling book that breaks through the cultural zeitgeist and gets made into a feature film. But these days, when you have somebody like a Netflix who will just line up with buku bucks to pay for something, it's hard. It's hard to do. But somebody out there will tell an original story. It will break through one way or the other. Maybe it'll be the first really good movie on YouTube, or somebody will make their own original independent series. Somebody will break through. I remember the conversations early on about one day there will be internet celebrities, people being famous. And you're like, well, the internet's just a distribution system. These people are just the modern day actors / reality stars, right? So I don't think original storytelling is necessarily dead. I just don't think until somebody can prove the economics of it. And that always takes a disruptor. I remember the early days of talking to folks in Los Angeles at the different studios about deconstructing advertising models through interactivity and hotspotting and things like that, if you understand those terminologies. And they were always like, yeah, great. But nobody wants to bite the hand that feeds. We have traditional ad revenue. And until somebody's going to subsidize the transition, nobody's going to take the risk. So unfortunately, it's going to take a risk to do something we all know, which is make a turn back to original storytelling. And we all know that original storytelling is what people want. We all know that original storytelling is valuable. But I can make Spider-Man 5, and it's a lock. It's a lock that if I spend a couple $100 million, I'm probably going to double my money. So then you got to ask yourself why. Why are you doing it? You're not doing it in the pursuit of telling stories. You're doing it in the pursuit of making money, and that's fair. But to Andrew's point, Disney creating an incubator for young filmmakers, no, they're not going to do it. Look, Disney created an incubator for young entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, and then pretty much abandoned them all. I think that Bam Backbone might have actually come through that incubator, but generally speaking, like they did something like that, they probably got their tax write-off and they were done. Sphero was one of those products. The little toys was an incubator product, and then at some point that deal came to an end and they abandoned the product. So Disney's just not that kind of company. Disney is a we can do it ourselves kind of company. So like I said, if Disney was going to do any version of independent content creation, they would just use cheap labor in-house and figure out a way to do it on social media. Disney's current version of low-budget storytelling is what they're doing with Marvel. I mean, that Agatha show is all low budget. It's all low budget. They're still spending millions of dollars, but it's all low budget. These are good questions. You can fill out the question form. It's on the newsletter. It's on my Instagram stories right now. I would like to tell you that original storytelling would make like some sort of resurgence, but again, it's just going to happen when it happens. And I don't think the feature film marketplace is going to be the breeding ground for that. I think that the feature film marketplace is going to continue to, I say feature film marketplace, but I'm talking about movie theaters as a whole. I think what you're going to see is that theaters are going to keep going more and more with live events. You can rent out movie theaters now. So I think when you look at the movie theater industry as a whole and what works for them, it's these big tentpole movies. It's the Avengers, things like that, right? And then if they can sell out a theater for a concert to stream a concert to somebody, they're going to do that kind of stuff. So where's the opening, right? Like there's no art house cinema, so where's the opening? Where's literally the window for that kind of stuff? I don't think it exists. 253-263-1540. Let's talk about AI. This is the perfect time to make this leap. Let's talk about AI. But give me a call. We're going to talk about AI. I want to hear from you. Are you using AI? Are you using AI in the workplace? Are you using AI to generate content for yourself, clean up your photos? Where have you started to use AI in your life? Okay. So this clip is, I think, from CNBC. I got to make sure I pull up the right clip. Otherwise, you're going to hear Ellis. It's from CNBC, and it is Ben Affleck talking about AI. Now, listen, he is shot out of a cannon in this clip. Shot out of a cannon. I thought he was on something. I think it's just pure passion, because I think that the way he's reacting is based off of the fear-mongering around AI. Because there's this inherent fear that AI is going to replace actors and storytellers. You know, and now suddenly I don't need actors because I can just generate them in AI. Or I don't need them to shoot every scene. I can now generate scene, you know. And listen to what he says. The interviewer is going to set it up. Listen to what he says. But he's talking about AI as a toolkit for the future, and he's talking about the real upside for AI as a revenue stream. I find this stuff fascinating. Man, I really hope this is the right clip.
I want to, as we kind of wrap up here, I do want to come back to AI. Jerry, you mentioned it, but, you know, Ben, how did, you know, earlier, you guys weren't here, we did a demonstration, my colleague Andrew Sorkin and I recreated ourselves and our voices. How do you see it? I mean, is it a benefit or is it a real threat? Is it possible that a Netflix could say, you know, we're going to do our own, James Bond thing out there with a bunch of actors that are completely recreated for this market or that market?
A, that's not possible now. B, will it be possible in the future? Highly unlikely. C, movies will be one of the last things, if everything gets replaced, to be replaced by AI. AI can write you excellent imitative verse that sounds Elizabethan. It cannot write you Shakespeare. The function of having 2 actors or 3 or 4 actors in a room and the taste to discern and construct that is something that currently entirely eludes AI's capability, and I think will for a meaningful period of time. What AI is going to do is going to disintermediate the more laborious, less creative, and more costly aspects of filmmaking that will allow costs to be brought down, that will lower the barrier to entry, that will allow more voices to be heard, that will make it easier for the people who want to make goodwill on things to go out and make it. Look, AI is a craftsman at best. Craftsmen can learn to make stickly furniture by sitting down next to somebody and seeing what their technique is and imitating. That's how large video models, large language models, basically work. A library of vectors of meaning and transformers that interpret context, right? But they're just cross-pollinating things that exist. Nothing new is created.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. And really, in order to do that, look, craftsman is knowing how to work. Art is knowing when to stop. And I think knowing when to stop is going to be a very difficult thing for AI to learn because it's taste. And also, lack of consistency, lack of controls, lack of quality. AI, for this world of generative video, is going to do key things more. I wouldn't like to be in the visual effects business. They're in trouble. Because what costs a lot of money is now going to cost a lot less. And it's going to hammer that space, and it already is. And maybe it shouldn't take 1,000 people to render something, but it's not going to replace human beings making films. It may make your background more convincing. It can change the color of your shirt. It can fix mistakes that you've made. It can make it, you might be able to get 2 seasons of House of the Dragon in a year instead of 1. And if that happens, according to macroeconomics, in cultures where there are basically oligopolies competing, what should happen is with the same demand and the same spend is they should just make more shows, which should, you should have the same spend and now you can just watch more episodes. And eventually AI will allow you to ask for your own episode of Succession, where you could say, I'll pay $30 and can you make me a 45-minute episode where like Kendall gets the company and runs off and has an affair with Stewie. And it'll do it. And it'll be a little janky and a little bit weird, but it'll know their stats, it'll know those actors, and it will, remix it in effect, right. And it will do that. That's the value, in my view, long-term of AI for consumers, which is eventually my hope for AI is that it's an additional revenue stream that can replace DVD, which took 15 to 20% out of the economy of filmmaking, which is, and there should be negotiated rights and residual rights to say, if you want to, because what do people want to make? 5-minute, 30-second TikTok videos where they look like the Avengers. Well, great. You can, just like you used to be able to buy your Iron Man costume at the store, you're going to buy your Iron Man pack and you and your buddies are going to look like Iron Man and Hawkeye, like, on Twitch. That's what's going to really happen.
I forgot how long it was. I knew it was long. That's a long answer. And by the way, such a nuanced answer. You can only imagine why he looks so miserable around J-Lo. I can't even what kind of dinner conversations those two were having. But Ben Affleck's always been a very sharp guy, and he nailed it there. The idea of having AI packs, and I see the comment on TikTok. You make a good point. and the idea of AI packs filling the DVD gap in ancillary revenue is, I mean, when you break it down like that, it doesn't become a threat, right? It becomes a part of business. I understand the nature of AI hurting the effects business, but the effects business has been hurting for a very, very, very long time. But the way he described that there was just so on the money. And when he started to use the term packs, and I started to think of like Fortnite, and you kind of buy your character skin, but it's like a pack because it comes with the back bling and this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh, all right. So like I'll buy a pack on TikTok, and now I can be Iron Man in my videos. You know, there's apps that do special effects and have little effects packs. It's the same idea. Now, what platform and how that works and how open that is, that's a different story. But I found it interesting because he's not just an actor, he's a filmmaker, and I actually think he's a very good director. That was just a very interesting approach. And you could hear he was very amped up, and I think it was his passionate reaction to this idea that AI is going to destroy Hollywood. AI is inevitable. It's already here. But when you look at it through the perspective of a revenue stream, which just the way he spelled that out for me, like the way that light bulb went off for me, I'm like, wow, that really makes sense. And then you have to ask yourself, well, how does that get sold, right? These AI packs. I mean, is that Apple? Is that Apple selling me AI packs on my phone? Or is it TikTok as a filter? Is it Snapchat as a filter? You know, so it'll get there over time. You know, and then the idea of being able to like go and pull up a customizable episode, you know, using AI for that. And like he said, it'll be a little janky, you know, like that goes back to what we said the other day. Like there's this built-in expectation on certain things these days that it's not going to be perfect, but people still pay for it. Now, in the world of something like that, it'll be such a novelty, you won't care, right? You won't care if the quality is only average, because it'll be fun, it'll be new. Kind of reminds me of the early days of mobile devices. How many times did I buy Sonic the Hedgehog on a mobile device because it was just something different to be able to have a video game on my cell phone, and there weren't many offerings back then. So every time I went from a flip phone to a Sidekick, I bought Sonic. And it's not like you could take it with you, right? So you look at it like that, right? Like down digital content, DLCs. So it was like $5 every time I bought Sonic. You know? Somebody made a comment on TikTok about Oppenheimer. Now, obviously, there's source material for that. But you make a good point. They're few and far between. And they do inspire others. And Christopher Nolan is just in a whole other world, too, as far as filmmaking is concerned, and gets away with things that most can't do because of his power. But it's a great example. But there's source material there, and it actually makes the further point, too, because, you know, original storytelling can still have source material, right? So, but it's a good point. Oppenheimer and Barbie. I mean, what a mashup. What a mashup. And by the way, that in many ways, they, you know, revitalized cinema, you know, revitalized cinema. Does anybody remember there was a clip of Tom Cruise ranting during the pandemic? It got leaked out. Tom Cruise was on set yelling and screaming at his film crew. I think it was a Mission Impossible movie. Over, like, you know, COVID protocol. He was like the only guy at the time keeping the film industry going. I think it was Spielberg or somebody who went up to him and thanked him for like saving the movie industry by keeping that movie going. But there was this clip, and I wish I had it. I didn't know I was going to talk about this. But there was this clip of Tom Cruise yelling and screaming at people on set. And I remember him getting a lot of backlash for it. And I'm not like a big Tom Cruise person or anything. In fact, I probably have less good to say about him than anything else. But I totally defended him yelling and screaming at the crew here because he was trying to keep an industry afloat. He was a guy that was on the phone with studio heads in the middle of the night trying to prove that you could make movies during all the COVID social distancing stuff. I almost said nonsense. It wasn't total nonsense. A little bit of nonsense. Different conversation. So he is yelling and screaming at the crew because they're breaking protocols, which could shut down the movie, which could have major implications for the industry. It wasn't him just being like, hey, man, I'm trying to work here and yelling and screaming. The guy was leading the charge through the pandemic, proving that you could implement these protocols on a major motion picture, mind you. It was a big deal at the time. But it was one guy spearheading that initiative. And it was Tom Cruise, because he was able to put that money where his mouth is. There are a few guys like that in Hollywood, you know. There are a few guys like that in Hollywood that have that kind of power because of the size of their career. He got a bad rap for yelling, but he was actually fighting for everybody to keep their jobs. And, you know, I give credit where it's due. And, you know, guys like that have the ability to create change in their industry. You know, Nolan creating original storytelling, because when he walks in, it's Christopher Nolan. It's hard to say no, but he also plays ball. He'll give them Batman. You know, there used to be a saying, it's like one for them, one for me. It's all work. You're getting paid either way, you know. Long answer to the sequel question. I think as far as AI goes, you know, you see a lot of like things online on social media where AI is used to be deceptive. That's problematic. But I think what was kind of really fascinating for me to hone in on there was what he said about output. Like using AI to reduce costs so now you can get more episodes of something. You know, maybe that's what leads you to be able to tell more quality stories. You know, maybe there is a trade-off there where now suddenly, because I can reduce cost, you know, and maybe it's in the confines of a show, so maybe we're talking about an episode, but maybe it opens up a little more room for risk. You know, maybe that's the flip side to what's perceived to be a negative technology. Although I hate filler television episodes, nothing drives me more crazy than you're watching. Even like the best television series have filler episodes. You know, like you watch like Breaking Bad and you're like, oh, I can't wait to tune in next week to see what happens. And then you get like some random standalone episode with a fly in the lab. And you're like, oh, I really wanted to know what was going on with the show, but I guess we're just going to spend the next 35 minutes swatting a fly. Okay. So I don't know. I could rationalize both sides of that, right? Just because we've made some more money doesn't mean we need to make more episodes, you know. But listen, it's a business. This is how it works. But the idea of AI is a toolkit, and I want to hear from you. I want to know how people are using AI, because it's one of these things where, you know, the terminology gets picked up and used so quickly that sometimes people are thinking they're using AI and they're not even using AI, right? They're just using stuff. They're just using tech. But AI has been introduced so rapidly over the last couple years. And the term has become so ubiquitous, but I'm curious where people are actually using it, you know, in a real meaningful way where it's actually helping you out, you know, not just, oh, it's cool to use AI to generate this email. I know people that do that, but I'm curious, like, are you using AI? Where's AI benefiting you? 253-263-1540. 253. If you could drop that number in the chat for me, please. And give me a call. I want to hear how AI is benefiting you. Drop the number in the chat on TikTok. Drop the number in the chat on YouTube for me, please. Although it's on the screen on YouTube. 253-263-1540. Contributing to that gift goal on TikTok is going to let me know you like what we're doing here. It's going to show your support for what we're doing. We're going to do a team lift at the end of the radio show on TikTok. We kind of inadvertently do this little wrap-up thing on TikTok when I end the podcast. Let's go to the phone. You're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Royce. It's Dave from PA. How are you?
Dave, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good. Hey, I follow you in the lives and been watching last week. Just wanted to take a minute to connect.
Thank you so much. What's on your mind?
Yeah. So, you know, I just Nothing really. One, I think this new medium that you have, I just wanted to compliment you without blowing smoke. Really, really cool.
Thank you.
Really, really cool. So I think, congratulations to that. And I think for the audience, it's really great to be able to watch an entrepreneur in action, kind of building his business out and transforming the way that he works. I work in the transformation and change space, and so I can really appreciate watching this happen in real life.
Thank you. It's not easy. It's not. I mean, it's real talk.
No, yeah. No, it's not. But I think, I'm not going to claim to think I know what's inside your brain, but I do think that the way that you're looking to kind of branch out, it's a very smart model, especially, with what may or may not happen with the various mediums that are out there in the coming months and years, right? So I think that this is a really interesting medium, and I think it really matches your brand really, really well. It really gets your brand out there in a really unique way.
Well, thank you. I think it's important to diversify. It's that moderation conversation again.
Totally. And, I think just when you think about kind of moderation and the parks and things like that, Royce, and your brand, I would just say, I know, change is tough for everyone, right? And I think what's so cool, and I know you talked a little bit about it last week, and I missed your show yesterday, but I think that whole concept of nostalgia, and I'm assuming that, we might be, around the same age bracket, but that whole concept of nostalgia, what the parks are, what they meant to, folks that got to go there as kids, I think, our generation is phasing out, right? Our generation is phasing out. We want to try to give that last bit of like, hey, this is what we experienced as kids to our kids. And, when I think about your brand and how you need to diversify and how change is hard, kind of all over the place here, Royce, I didn't expect you to pick up this quickly. But I think that, there's still that desire to live that experience through you. So, certainly not speaking on behalf of your audience, but for me personally, I would just say thank you. Right. So when you do go in the parks and you kind of get out there and, especially now that I would say you're a little bit more free spirited with, how you engage while you're in the parks. It's awesome. It's awesome. But I really do appreciate, you bringing that experience through, to myself and the audience.
Well, thank you for that. And you get pushed, right? Because like I said earlier, in those first days, I didn't even want to weigh in. I just wanted to present. But what happens is over time, as you build an audience and whatnot, is other people force you to respond. And I had this conversation with somebody. I don't talk to too many other content creators, but there's a gentleman who I'm very fond of, and he's actually in the Disney space. As some of you may know who he is. And I love him, but I'm not going to give him a free ad. But but we were talking, and he said that he gave up on being positive because people just kept forcing him to be real. Like, in other words, I can't, if I have to respond at some point. So yeah, the idea of coming into the park and being more free, I've learned it. But it's folks like you who have been with me this whole time that have freed me up to do that. And oftentimes I'll get a comment where someone will say like, oh, like what's wrong with him today? Or, oh boy, you're really spicy. That word spicy. I can't stand that.
Yeah.
Makes me think of somebody being ossified. But, you get those comments. I'm like, this is just me. Like, this is just all of me. Anybody who knows me personally, you know what I mean? I'm walking around singing songs. I'm rapping out loud. I'm saying what's on my, like, so, I'm just showing my audience more of me. Like, that's who I am. It's not for show.
Yeah. And I think that it's cool. And I think, really the way that it's coming through, not only in this medium, but, certainly, in the way that, as I mentioned, you're bringing in the parks. And I think you're hitting the right points. I think, I may have shared, in one of your streams, back towards the end of the summer, we made a last ditch effort just to kind of go away and get down there for just a couple days. But you're right. At some point, it's great that the stock price is where it is. I don't want to get into, what we were able to, pull from the CFO's overview on CNBC, but at some point you really have to think about the experience versus the cost. And that's why I think the way that you bring kind of Tokyo forward and some of the other, avenues that are out there to experience, the brand and probably some of the challenges that they're dealing with, is really cool. So appreciate that honesty and candor that you bring to the forefront.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate the support. It means a lot. This is, like I said, it's to make a shift like this isn't easy, but there was something inside of me that kind of moved me to do this. I admittedly was just kind of following my intuition, but that's usually how I roll in life. That's how I built the arcade. I just have always followed my gut, and it tends to work. Now, I have to tell you, though, it's a learning experience. I just looked over at the YouTube screen and realized I never cut to camera. So this entire video presentation on YouTube, it needs improvement. It's laggy and all. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to go. And I got this on audio for podcast. It's on TikTok. So there's enough of a presentation here. But what I learned a long time ago is and I know people like this, they spend so much time thinking and overthinking and never doing. So many people talk and never act. So I'm just one of these people. I'm like, you know what? Let's just go. We'll make our modifications along the way, and people will watch the journey.
Well, continued success to your voice. And I just wanted to, somebody that's been watching for about 2 years and very new to kind of all social media mediums, just want to thank you. And what you do is really, really cool. And the way you engage your audience is really, really cool. So appreciate that and hope that you're able to continue to keep it up. Continued success to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I hope you have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Royce.
Thank you. I was going to ask him if he used AI, but he sounded like he had to go because he said that he works in, I forget the exact term he used, but he works in some version of a change business there. So I was going to ask him if he used automation, but he sounded like he had to go. Nice gentleman. Thank you for calling. But yeah, I didn't realize I didn't even have the video up on YouTube. Whatever. Listen, who cares? Do you really need to see me talking? You can listen to me talk. 253-263-1540. He brought up Tokyo, and I have on my list to talk to you briefly about Tokyo. And I was going to tell you a story because I have a story for everything. And we were just talking about the AI stuff with Ben Affleck, and I had a little side story there to share. So let's put a pin in Tokyo for a second. And let me just go back to this because a lot of you know that I'm a politically minded individual. I worked on Barack Obama's 2008 campaign. And by the way, this is just a random story. And hopefully it makes you laugh, okay? And it's at my expense, so buckle up. So I worked in Henderson, Nevada as a volunteer on the Obama campaign in 2008. It was a great experience. And I worked with Ben Affleck's mom. She was part of the office. Hold on. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air.
Hey, Royce, it's Kyla. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
What's on your mind? Thank you for calling.
I think we have a little bit of a delay, but I just wanted to get your opinion on the whole Star Wars hotel experience that is no more. What do you think they will do in that area? Will they do anything? It seems like such a missed opportunity and such a waste.
Great question. The woman who made the video that I was talking about yesterday on the Star Wars hotel, she's the one that floated the idea that perhaps it would become a dining experience. But, that takes effort and that takes modification of the space. I think probably when it's all said and done, it could be storage, maybe a filming location. Not that they need that for a filming location, but I don't know. I could see it sitting there collecting dust before I could see them spending any money on it. And it was a short-sighted endeavor. And it is just a prime example of Disney trying to milk their deep-pocketed customers over and over again and not appealing to a wider customer base because most people cannot afford that. And those that can, I don't see the upside in going more than once.
Well, and on top of it, what I don't understand is, could it not have been feasible to keep it around if they just lowered the cost to where it actually became affordable to a more vast majority of people?
it probably didn't make economic sense to run it at that point. I mean, you have to look at the way, and I only have a little more insight to this because I did check out some of that video, but the way that they ran that place, it it only had so many rooms. Okay. So if you look at the occupancy and then you look at what you would reduce the cost, I mean, you would reduce the cost to entry and then look at the operational cost. It probably came up short for them. It was probably built in such a way that that's what they had to charge.
They were overzealous from the beginning, I suppose.
Well, it does. Like, why? First of all, I don't want a cruise ship experience in a warehouse. When I know there's 40 square miles of Walt Disney World out there, why do I want to spend thousands of dollars to be locked inside of a warehouse? Doesn't make sense to me. That money could be spent on a cruise.
Yeah, I understand. I don't think I would have loved that either for 3 days, too.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, first of all, it sounds claustrophobic to me. And I love Star Wars, but I don't like being told what to do. Okay? So I don't want to be told, oh, we're all moving into the galley now. I'd be like, you go to the galley. I'm going into the attic. I want to see what's upstairs. Sir, you can't do that. Do you know how much I paid to be here? I mean, I really wouldn't do any of that.
Yeah, that seems crazy.
I wouldn't do any of that. I wouldn't pay to go. As soon as I saw the announcement, I was like, this is not for me. I'm a huge Star Wars geek. Huge Star Wars geek. That's not for me.
Sure.
You know.
Understood. Yeah, I missed whatever video it is you're referring to, so I'll have to go back and watch it. That's been on my mind, and then I was there with my son this past week for his birthday, and we drove past the backside of it, and it just was kind of almost like a painful reminder that there's a really cool something just sitting over there, not being utilized at all, and may never just turn into a ghost town over there. I was hoping maybe you might have a better outlook on it than I did.
Well, this woman had a really good thought about making it a dining establishment, but the logistics and the cost involved in doing that might not be worth it to them. You know, I think what we've learned from this current leadership playbook is that they know that they can get away with bare minimum, so that's all they do. They really don't feel the need to go above and beyond.
I agree.
I almost wonder if they built the hotel knowing that it would close eventually. In other words, I wonder if they just built it to make some money. Why not? I mean, why not? Other crazier things. You know the show The Producers, where they're like, hey, listen, do you know that we can make more money with a flop than a hit? So who knows?
Yeah. It's legit. That's pretty sad that America's come to that. But I get it. No, I could see that being a ploy too.
Yeah, and I love Star Wars, but that was not designed for me. Like, I think that was designed for rich parents to take their little kids and be like, see what I did for you?
I feel like, and I book travel, so I'll share from my experience. What I seen a lot with that experience was, it was actually a majority of adults without children and a bunch of, I'd say middle-aged and older men were the majority of the clients that I had contact with that wanted to do that. It wasn't even so much a family thing from what I experienced. It was more of an older man wanting to go and live out his childhood, just be a kid again, which is fine. But you're also honing into a very small market when you're talking Disney.
I don't understand why I can't get a girlfriend. I just spent $2,700 to go live in a Star Wars hotel. I don't understand. Anyway, well, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like,
I love your content.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Yeah. Thank you for calling in. I hope you have a great day.
You as well. Take care. You
know what I mean, though? Like, would you really? Like, come on now. That's a lot of money. That's a really nice date. I mean, I get it. Some guy wants to live out his geeky Star Wars fantasies, but come on. I remember I had a friend back in the day, and I'll never forget this moment. And this is at theater camp, okay? So it's theater camp where a lot is understood and forgiven, right? And there was some girl that liked him. And she went to the theater where he was to go find him, to talk to him. And he was playing lightsaber duels. These are adults. He was playing a lightsaber duel. She just turned around and walked away, never came back. I don't blame her. So, time and a place. Thank you all for contributing to the gift goal on TikTok. That's going to show me that you like what we're doing here. I appreciate the support for the format. We're going to work out the bugs as we go. You know, I have the little speaker over here so that you can hear the callers, but I'm also trying to kind of manage the levels so that I don't get any feedback. So it's a little bit of a learning experience for me, and I'm trying to do it in such a way that this mix is good enough to go out so that once I upload it, I can be out the door and into the parks for you, okay? Because that is the idea. So give me a call, 253-263-1540. The story I was starting to tell. So I was working with Ben Affleck's mom. It's just a random story. And they sent us to one of the malls. We were in Henderson, Nevada, to register voters. And I guess we were doing persuasion or something because, you know, you have different lanes. If you know anything about a campaign, I think we were on the persuasion thing. And whatever. So her and I are hanging out. Very nice woman. And I'm not thinking about, like, you know, whatever. She's Ben Affleck's mom. I could really care less in the grand scheme of things, but it makes a funny story. So she's talking to me about her grandkids. And she's telling me how she's going to go see her grandkids and this, that, and the other. And, you know, the one grandkid is adorable and precious, and the other grandkid's a little bit of a pain in the tuchus. All right. Fast forward like a day later. This is so embarrassing for me. Fast forward like a day later, we're like sitting in the offices, and she says to somebody, "Oh, I'm leaving shortly to go see my grandkids, or to go see my grandkid." And I look over at her, and I'm like 2 tables away, so people heard me, and I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. Shocker. I go, "Oh, is that the one you like?" And she shot me the look from hell. And I felt so bad. And she was like, "Ugh, I knew I shouldn't trust someone from Hollywood." And I was like, "Ugh, who says that?" You know? And I apologized, but it didn't matter. But I saw her again, actually, because I had to give her something when I was in L.A. Very nice lady. I felt terrible because it just came out in a joking manner. So that's my story for everything, right? Story for everything. But to get back to Tokyo, hey, listen, I had the data, I used it. So I saw, and I think Kenzie has talked to me about this site, Zip Air. I think that's the site Kenzie was telling me about. Maybe not. Maybe it's a different site. I forget. I'm sure I'll get a text message. But tickets to Tokyo, round trip, $216. Now, that's not there's no luggage included. There's no food included. There's no entertainment on the back of the seat. So when it's all said and done, it probably is going to cost you under $500. I don't know how good this could be. I guess Zip Air is an airline. I don't know. But so maybe that's not the site she was telling me about. But at that cheap to go to Tokyo, now granted, if you had kids with you and all that, that might be cumbersome. But I'm looking at that and going, how bad is that flight? Like, it's a long flight, and I like having, you know, a lot of room by my feet, and I like, you know, that you get a decent bit to eat, and you have in-flight entertainment. I could get past the entertainment. I could find a resolution to that. That's easy. But just a few $100s for a flight to Tokyo. $216 round trip. The gentleman that just called in talking about how I keep mentioning Tokyo, this was on my list to discuss. Now, whether you do it that way or you go to Delta and you spend $800 a ticket, because look, when this is all said and done, I think this is going to wind up costing you about $500 with fees and everything else, right? Luggage and food, whatever. So even with Delta, you're in the $800 ballpark. A flight to Tokyo for one person for under $1,000, okay? That's a steal. And I'm telling you, you can get hotel rooms for $150, $160 a night that you can walk to Disneyland from. So I saw that, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, how bad could that flight be? So now part of me wants to go on to Zip Air. Maybe somebody wants to help me out and do this. But how much is it really going to cost? Like, if I just bring a backpack, right? Like, what would the adventure be? And I almost want to test this out, right? Like, I don't pay for any extra luggage, right? So I only take what I can fit in a backpack on the airplane. So I'm not going to pay for extra luggage. They're going to charge me for food. Okay, how much is that? I don't get this, just knock off all the add-ons. Can I really get to Tokyo for under $300? Because I know with the food and the seat assignment and the baggage and all that, you'll be in the $500 ballpark. But I'm tempted to try it out. $216 to fly to Tokyo? I might want to see the airplane's certificate of certification, but other than that, that's really tempting. We've already talked on previous episodes about the cost to go to Tokyo, but that's really something. Zip Air, $216. What in the world is Zip Air? Listen, we're going to do a group trip to Tokyo. I think we should just do it next October, because that's when I've gone the last 2 times. So you can fill out the form on the website if you want to join us on a group trip. I have to talk to William. I think he's still in Europe. I haven't admittedly reached out to him. I've been too focused on this. But fill out the form. There's been a lot of interest. Folks want to go to Tokyo. We'll do a guided trip. That way you don't have to worry about the language barrier. I'll make sure you get your lightning lanes. Well, I know the parks very well now. So go to my website, click on the travel form, and sign up for that, okay? 253-263-1540. 253-263-1540. Kenzie telling me she got an email on Tokyo flight deals. Wow, you sent me that text 45 minutes ago. Who knew? Who knew? So that's the deal. 253-263. I kind of want to do it, though. Like, I kind of want to just go experiment for that cost and find out how miserable the flight is at that price. Now, all right. I got to get into a little news, just a little world news for a minute, okay? And please call in 253-263-1540. The first thing I want to talk about is Amazon. I brought up Amazon yesterday. I love Amazon. I love Amazon. But, I'm looking at this from a business perspective. I was talking a moment ago about how I want to build this thing into something. And if you've ever seen, there's a photo of Jeff Bezos sitting at a desk. And most folks probably don't know this, but in the early days of Amazon, they would use like doors to build desks. When you got hired in the early days of Amazon, you had to assemble your own desk. Jeff Bezos has always had these sort of business principles that he instituted. And it's quite remarkable if you look back, because Amazon, and I remember the early days, but Amazon in just a very quick 2 decades transformed itself from an online bookstore to a massive tech company. And if you go online, there's a clip of him walking through the warehouse, and an employee stops him and thanks him. I've worked at all these companies over the years, and the way this company runs is top notch and all this. And he's very appreciative of the compliment. But there are stories out there about how Jeff Bezos would get out on the assembly line during the holidays and pack up the packages himself. And there was a time quota. And the story goes, somebody didn't know he was standing next to the owner and turned to Jeff Bezos and said, "You're going to have to pack those up a little bit quicker. We're trying to, fulfill orders here." But that's what he used to do at one point. He used to go, obviously in the early days, he packed everything himself because the business started in his garage. But I'm looking at this video of him walking through this warehouse, and I don't know when it was shot. It may be recent. This massive warehouse, one of Lord knows how many hundreds. And thinking about the picture of him sitting at the desk with the spray-painted Amazon logo on the wall. And thinking of the commitment to build something when everybody else told you no. when you're the last man standing, you know, that entrepreneurial spirit to have a drive to do something when everybody else tells you no, or everybody else tells you it can't be done. You know, it's that same drive that got Walt Disney to build the parks. And I'm looking at this Amazon clip, and I'm just thinking, wow, in 20 years, look what this man built. How remarkable what one man could accomplish in such a short period of time. You know, you look at a Walt Disney and you look at how much he accomplished before he ever even got into making animated features. And then you look at how much he accomplished before he ever got into theme parks. And then you look at the theme parks of it all, right? And the World's Fair of it all. 20 years. I mean, now it's longer than that. But in the first 20 years, the acceleration of Amazon, it was unbelievable. I remember in the early days, somebody's messaging me. I remember in the early days, Amazon was just a bookstore. And then they added CDs. And I remember ordering a CD for my sister for the holidays. It was Billy Joel box set, 4-disc set. And it didn't show up. I don't know if it was marked delivered or whatever. It didn't show up. And they sent me another one. No questions asked. And then the other one showed up, and I felt bad. I called them. They said, keep it. I was like, this company's amazing. You know, this Amazon's amazing. I just got 2 for 1. It was cheaper for them to do that than it was to process the return. You know, he was about gobbling up market share. So why waste the money to have somebody send it back to us and process the return and deal with all of that? Just keep it. We made a mistake. Let's move forward. And that was always his edict. But it fascinates me, okay, in those early days, because in those early days it was books, then it was music, and then it was Toys R Us. And it was, we're going to add a new store. They didn't add a new store. They added a new category on a blog. But back then, the language was different. So they added a new store. It was Toys R Us. And Amazon continued to grow. And before you knew it, like in a flash of a pan overnight, Amazon became a place that had everything. Everything. And when I look at that, I so admire the vision of one man, the same way I admire Walt Disney's vision. I admire the vision of one man to commit to something with such force and such passion that in just 2 decades, he took it from an online bookstore to a massive tech company with government contracts, with an internet architecture that supplies the backbone to sites like Netflix, like we talked about. Let me go turn this air down. But it's fascinating to me what one man can accomplish. And it is something to be celebrated because, you know, a lot of people like to vilify Bezos and Amazon. But that's the American dream personified. And the fact that one man can accomplish all that in such a short period of time. 253-263-1540. I got to crank this air down. Now, conversely, that's Jeff Bezos, right? I mean, you see this guy out there, he's a sharp guy, and he built this thing from nothing. It's very impressive. You might not like him, but it's hard not to be impressed. Then I look at this Elon Musk, and I don't know how he got his fortune. I know that he didn't really build anything. I know he was a PayPal founder, okay? But this guy, can we just be honest? This guy looks so clingy for the richest man in the world. I mean, Jeff Bezos walks around with all the swagger. He's poised. You know, he's ambitious. Elon Musk, I'm looking at this footage of him at the UFC fight the other night. I mean, this Elon Musk looks like the kind of guy you can't get rid of. Like, I'm sorry. It looks like Donald Trump can't get rid of him. Every photo I've seen, Donald Trump's got this look on his face like, why isn't he gone home yet? Like, why is he still here? Like, I'm telling you, that relationship is going to blow up big time. There's just no way it doesn't. But Elon Musk is so cringy to me. I never cared for Elon Musk. Ever, 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 ever. There was somebody I went to college with who admired him greatly, and I always kind of questioned that guy. And when I saw him one day in the early days of Facebook post that Elon Musk was his businessman crush, it only further solidified my doubts on that individual, because Elon Musk is just trading on everybody else's success. He's not a real visionary. And I don't think the man's that intelligent. I'm glad he's the richest man in the world. Good for you, buddy. But oh my God, am I wrong? Does he just, I don't know if I'd want to be stuck at a table with that man, let alone on an airplane. He just seems super annoying. And then you can say, oh, well, you know, Royce, he's got autism. Well, that's not holding him back, okay? So let's not use that as a tool, all right? But I'm just saying, the guy looks like super desperate for friends. 253-263-1540. He really does. That's all. No big grand statement there. The man looks desperate for friends. He really, I mean, I'm seeing this picture of him on the airplane, and it just looks like he invited himself. Like he's taking somebody else's seat. Elon's still here? Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, what's the scale?
Hey now.
Hello? Hello? Hear me?
Kale, what's up?
Hello? Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for asking. What's on your mind?
Nothing. I just want to see what you're doing today. So.
I'm in the middle of a radio show. Thank you. You have a question?
Yeah. So what do you think they're going to do with the Muppet Vision 3D?
What do I think they're going to do with Muppet Vision 3D? I hope they don't get rid of it. I just don't know if they're aware. Like, I don't think they care, and I don't think they're aware about how people feel, and I don't think there's any consideration for Jim Henson's legacy. So, I don't know.
I mean,
they're
I like the show. So.
The fact that I love the show, but the fact that they haven't said anything about it, their silence is very, very loud. That's my concern.
I mean,
it's the silence, Kale, because they could easily come out and say where they're doing it, and they haven't. It's almost like they know that they're going to get backlash, and they're just waiting, you know?
I mean, from the plans, it looks like it's going to be in that area.
I don't know. I was talking about that earlier, you know? Now, Kale, are you going back to the college program?
I am, yes, I am.
You are? Okay. Now, see, I want to be careful here, because if you told me you weren't going back to the college program, I would ask you questions, but I don't want to get you in trouble. Okay? So here's what I'm going to say to you, Kale, all right? Are you there?
Yeah. I'm here, yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm just relaxing.
Oh, yeah, me too. No, listen, what I'm saying is, like, you know, if you know somebody that has something they want to share anonymously, tell them to call in. If you have a friend who's a cast member that has a story that they want to share anonymously, give them the phone number. Because I don't need to blow up people's spots. I don't want you to lose your job, but let's start talking about the things that people aren't talking about. Let's make this a place. There's already cast members who watch me in the park. Pick up the phone and call anonymously. You don't have to say who you are. You don't even have to say where you work. You just tell your story, and let's shed light on things. Like, I love that. If you have anybody that wants to blow the whistle, give them this number. All right, Kale?
I will.
All right, listen, I
could talk about...
Huh?
I mean, that sounds good.
Oh, all right. I thought you were going to ask me another question.
I'm trying to think of another question right now, but...
And listen,
I could do...
Kale, no pressure. I could talk for hours. Hours.
I know you could.
What
I've seen you live. You talk for hours and hours.
What?
I've seen you live. You talk for hours and hours.
That's my job. All right, Kale, listen, I'm getting on an airplane. All right, I got to go.
Talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Bye.
Bye.
2 days in a row with the airplane excuse, but hey, listen. 253-263-1540. How is he doing a live broadcast from an airplane. I don't understand that. That Wi-Fi is really good. Kale's a good kid. I wanted to ask him questions, about working there, but I don't want to get him in trouble. He's a college kid, you know what I mean? And he means well. I tried to get Kale. He was working at Pinocchio's Village House. I tried to get Kale to ask him to bring back the chicken parm. Now, eventually it came back. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. By the way, I have like 2 more food and wine reviews. Speaking of food, 2 more food and wine reviews I got to put out. I had been sitting on them and just totally forgot. Even in my downtime, I should have been releasing them. So now I am releasing like the last couple food and wine reviews with the last few days of the festival. But hey, it's content nonetheless. So posting those last few videos, and then we will go into Festival of the Holidays. I look forward to doing the cookie stroll on the live stream with you all. And also later this week, we're going to go to IAAPA. That's going to be a lot of fun. If you're familiar with IAAPA, the IAAPA Expo, the amusement expo there, that should be a lot of fun. I'm going to go with my buddy who's a cast member. We'll stream it a little bit. Who knows? Maybe we'll pick up a couple interview subjects at IAAPA too. That'll be a lot of fun. So we'll live stream IAAPA later in the week. But I am looking forward to the cookie stroll. Now, all right. One of the things, see, what I'm trying to do is kind of front load the show with the Disney stuff and then kind of move into more of a news segment, if you will, right? And one of the things that interests me, if we're talking about non-Disney topics, is net neutrality. And net neutrality is one of these things that can be argued. It can be communicated in very, what's the way I'm trying to say this? The net neutrality argument can be misconstrued. Okay, it can be very easily misconstrued, and people can easily be misinformed. Okay, because the desire for net neutrality, at least from a legislative perspective, isn't necessarily in line with what's best for the consumer. And there's a deeper conversation to be had there. Okay, these are the type of folks I'd like to bring on and talk to. There's journalists we can talk to about this. But what I noticed, what I wanted to talk to you about, was the Justice Department's antitrust officials have decided to ask a judge to force the Alphabet company, which owns Google, to sell off its Chrome browser. Okay? They're claiming that they have a search monopoly between the browser and between Google. They're claiming that there's a monopoly. So now the Justice Department is trying to force Google, and this is a historic crackdown, to sell off the Chrome browser. They're claiming that Google has a monopoly. Now, I said the other day I thought Amazon had a monopoly. I would love to get somebody on here. Now, there's somebody that I booked yesterday that I think can speak to this, the same person I was talking about earlier. But I'd love to get somebody on to talk about this because, the browser and the search engine, while they're both in theory internet search tools, I don't see how that's a monopoly. And maybe there's somebody that's better educated on this that can explain this to me. Like, yeah, Google's got the search market on lock, but you can tell your Chrome to go to Bing. You can tell your Chrome browser to default to any URL you want it to. So how does actually Chrome being divested from Google, we'll call Google, not to confuse you, the Alphabet company, how is that actually a monopoly? Like, these are the kind of things I personally don't understand that. I could see if you said that they owned the Opera browser. I don't even know who owns Opera. Okay, like, oh, you can't own multiple browsers. Okay, fine. You can't own multiple search engines. But if I go out and buy a Google Chromebook, I mean, yeah, I guess that walls me in a little bit because it makes you log in with the Google stuff, but that's not really what they're fighting, right? Because if you told Google to divest from their Chrome browser, they could still sell Chromebooks with a different browser. So I'm trying to understand what makes that a monopoly and why. And now listen, I would imagine the answer to my next question is pretty simplistic. But why is that a monopoly when Amazon's servers, AWS servers, are like the backbone for almost everything, particularly in the content delivery of it all, right? We talked about this the other day. Netflix uses Amazon servers. There was a woman ages ago that did an experiment where she disconnected from Amazon. It's amazing how much Amazon controls, particularly on in respect to internet architecture. So my question, and I don't know if there's anybody out there that can shed light on this, because I'd really love to be educated on this, 253-263-1540. What makes the Chrome browser a monopoly for Google in conjunction with their search engine? And how is Amazon, as much as I love them, not considered a monopoly because of their AWS servers? Because almost everything is on not everything, but a lot is on AWS. So are you going to go after Amazon for that or no? I mean, I don't even know if Amazon has the current government contracts. I know at one point they were fighting with Microsoft. So admittedly, I'm not even up to snuff on all that. But I was going to argue that if they do have government contracts, they probably won't be bothered. I don't understand it, and I sincerely would love to be educated. These are the type of topics that I want to talk about. It's got nothing to do with Disney. It's not politics. Okay? It's more consumer and more business driven. It's certainly internet related, which relates to everything we're doing here on the internet together. But how does that tie? I mean, how is that a monopoly? Now, I could argue Comcast is a monopoly because Comcast has the delivery of the internet, right? And then can own the content on top of it. Peacock, so they're delivering internet and video. Maybe I'll get an answer. You're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Royce. It's Heather.
Heather, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, nice to talk to you too. So off topic, I'm not talking about Elon. I mean, I'm not talking about the other stuff. I'm going to talk to you about Elon Musk because I can't stand the man, and I'm going to try to stay as politically neutral as possible while discussing this with you. But yeah, he's got some issues, I think.
Well, that's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, he's a sellout for sure. And he's a little terrifying to me. He scares me because he doesn't have an allegiance to anyone. I don't believe I get he's in love with Trump. We get that. We've all seen that. But
I don't even agree with that. I don't even agree with that statement. I think he's in love with himself.
You don't?
No.
Well, he's definitely in love with himself.
Those are two men that are in love with themselves, and the only thing that they see in each other is they fill voids in each other. It's a type of person. Elon's in love with Elon.
So,
Elon thinks he's in charge now.
Sure. Right. So that's true. That's for sure true. He's very sickly looking. I don't know. I'm actually terrified. I really am. He has way too much power for someone who doesn't have any allegiance to anything but himself, as you're saying. And I just feel like somebody needs to rein him in a little bit. There needs to be government control. Now he has his hands in our government, which
well, I want to represent.
It's a made-up position.
Let's not even try to walk on eggshells. It is the Republican Party's responsibility to rein him in. As far as I'm concerned, right. Once they're in the White House, he should be locked out. My first gripe is that he's got citizenship here, but he's got citizenship in 3 different countries. Okay, so look, whether you voted for the president-elect or not, okay, we should all want our country to succeed. So if we're operating under the premise of wanting, you know, the executive branch to succeed, and you notice how I choose my words carefully, because when you start to use the wrong words, people tune out or they have a visceral response. So I purposely say president-elect, okay, because people get bent out of shape. But I would like to see some success in Washington. I doubt it's coming because it never does. Okay, but I don't want Elon near any of it. I don't want look what he did to Twitter. He came in and he broke it. You know the story of Elon taking the penknife out and hacking the server out of the ground in San Francisco over Thanksgiving weekend? Yeah. I appreciate the hustle, but I don't, and I'm all for disruptors. I'm all for shaking things up. I don't trust Elon Musk.
Right, and that's just it. So now they're giving him a position, and I'm just scared of what that's going to bring for our country. I have no idea why they would even give him a position. It just seems so bizarre to me. And as we watch this unfold, I'm kind of comically just looking in the background. I'm just going to watch it happen because I'm going to eat my popcorn, watch this all unfold. It just seems more like a comedy skit than real life at this point.
Well, okay, so now you said something that's interesting. Okay, because I have to be honest with you. There are many times that I find myself having that sentiment where, in other words, you shift into the entertainment mode. But then when my rational mind kicks back in, I don't want my government to be entertainment. Okay?
Fair. But it is at this point.
But that's what we do.
To live with this.
That's what debates are. There's no reason to have 2+ years of campaigning. All of this stuff is a show, you know? So I'm not going to finger point, but the problem for me is that you can't escape it. It's become human nature. And when I catch myself slipping, how can I fault my neighbor? In other words, when I catch myself, to use your phrase, eating the popcorn, I'm like, oh, he picked Matt Gaetz. You know, everybody's scrambling. As much as I hate that pick, I'm laughing at the same time because, boy, you're really freaking out the government agencies, and most of these people never work, right? So there's a part of me that loves the idea that, you know, you're freaking out people that are asleep behind the wheel. I just think we got the wrong people doing it. You know, I've wanted a disruptor my whole life. All I've ever wanted, which is why I've always been an independent, all I've ever wanted since I was a little kid was to see and this sounds like such a silly want for a little kid. All I've ever wanted since about the 3rd grade was the Electoral College to be abolished. Okay. And to see a successful third-party candidate come in and disrupt the system. We still have not gotten either.
I've been waiting for Bernie my whole life. But
it's not going to be Bernie. It's not going to be Bernie.
I love Bernie. Come on, what's wrong with him and his mittens?
Bernie Sanders, let me sit here and tell you how I've done nothing and I will continue to do nothing. But he does speak the truth. I mean, what he said lately, I give credit where credit is due. But Bernie's part of the problem. Because when it comes down to it, he just sides with the Democrats. He's not a true-blood independent. He's speaking truth now, but when rubber met the road, Bernie bowed out. So Bernie's no better than the rest of them. And where's Bernie's track record? Bernie's the kind of guy. Would you like your bagel toasted? Would you want everything bagel? Okay, a little smear on top for you. Okay, great, delicious, very good. Black coffee. You don't need any cream in your coffee. You want to taste the notes. Okay. That's my Bernie impression. Thank you.
Okay, you can have that opinion. Mine is different. That's okay.
Listen, it's fine. I like Bernie. I mean, I like him as a guy that speaks up. I don't like him as somebody I'd vote for. Like, I can separate the two. Actually, I just really like doing the impression. That's the honest truth. But no, look, you got to remember something. Bernie, a lot of people like Joe Rogan were supporting Bernie and went to Trump. There's a connective tissue there. I'm not a poli-sci person. And I think that's what the horseshoe is, but I'm not going to pretend to know poli-sci because I don't. All right. And I always call it the circle, but there's much more overlap there. Everybody wants something.
It's true.
Everybody
and yet
wants.
Bernie asked everyone to vote for the other party.
You're saying not this last time, the time before?
Both times.
What do you mean?
Well, when he was running and he had all those followers, he said, please, vote for Hillary. Right?
Right.
And yet they didn't listen. So we can't fault him for that.
He's establishment. The problem I have is he's establishment. Like I said, I appreciate what he said as of late, and that's great. And it's always convenient to speak up when it's not going to move the needle, right? But we just need young blood from the outside. Like how we reboot movies. Like, can't we just reboot Washington, D.C.? Can't we just reboot our government? Wipe out all of Congress. Be like, congratulations, you've all been invited to leave. And we're gonna put in term limits, and and you know what? Nobody gets paid. Nobody gets paid to be a congressman. You have your job, you come in, okay? You Congress goes into session, you legislate, you go home. That's the way it used to be. Why can't we get back to that?
So how do they survive? I'm curious.
Get a job.
How would you propose they survive?
Get a job. That's how it used to be.
Oh.
You used to be a farmer, right? And then you used to go and they would hold however you want to say it. They'd hold Congress. Okay. And then, you'd go do your thing. You'd vote, you'd legislate, you go home. It wasn't a job. It wasn't a career. It was public service, hence the term.
Okay.
But I understand.
Right,
I understand why you like Bernie the same way I understand why people like Trump. It's kind of fascinating when AOC asked her followers on Instagram, and she's not somebody I'm a fan of. I'm not a fan of any of these people we're talking about, okay? But at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? So you got to play the game. And she asked her followers why they voted for her and voted for Trump. And a lot of them said, I voted for him to be a disruptor, and I voted for you to keep him in check.
Okay.
I mean, that's really not hard to understand whether you agree or disagree with it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. I mean, the working class is suffering. I mean, that's all that really matters, I mean, how sad is it that people have to work 2 to 3 jobs and they can barely get by?
Correct.
And then the one thing that people used to do.
I'm doing better now being disabled than I was working.
Really?
Paying for car taxes and all the other stuff. It's sad.
Right. But that's government, right?
Yeah.
And then you could, and and we're just having a conversation, so please don't take this personally, but then you could probably look at that and say, now, how do I rationalize that against my own internal beliefs? You know what I mean? But you have to live.
Right.
But we're all that way. I mean,
right.
And that's why, again, moderation is so important, because I said this last week when I was raised in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is a huge swing county. It's super big part of this election and most general elections. My mom would always vote down the line. She'd just go like it was a Price is Right game. Blink, 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 right down the line. I never understood that, right? Because I'd like to think of myself as a moderate, rationally minded individual. So I'm going to vote based off of what speaks to my issues. And just because you belong in a party doesn't mean that you're going to get it done for me. And I think most people, or at least the ones that actually affect the outcome of these elections, think that way. And that's why swing counties are so valuable. Obviously, to state the obvious. But the fact that the Democrats don't understand the voter mindset it just drives me crazy. Like, how do you not understand that the working class just wants to feel heard?
No, it's absolutely. I'm scared for them. This should be an interesting 4 years for sure. So let's just wait and see what happens. But
it'll be entertaining.
Yeah, Elon Musk should not be in our government. Sorry.
I agree. But how do we solve? I mean, and that's really incumbent upon the Republicans, right? Because if he doesn't have an appointment, then he should be shown the door.
All he has to do is pay them. That's all I can say.
Well, he bought his way in already. I mean, look at all that. I mean, if you look at it from a media perspective, I mean, look at all of the earned media that Trump got off of Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, conversely, you could say, well, how much earned media did MSNBC give Kamala? So whatever. It's all designed to keep us apart. They don't even want us having these conversations. I guarantee to you people scrolled out as we're having this conversation because it rubs people the wrong way. I love these conversations. So thank you for that.
I do too, but I don't want to cause problems with the show. So I keep quiet most of the time.
No. No, like that's the whole point. Like, you know, if we're not having the uncomfortable conversations, then where's the progress? You know, and what I want to be able to do at some point here is when things go crazy, is instead of pointing fingers and doing the whole "I told you so," we can start to have the "where do we go from here" conversation.
Well, I'm trying to rein that in for myself personally as a woman of a minority and, you know, an artist who's spent her life around the LGBTQ, what is it, IA community.
I don't know. It's half the alphabet at this point.
It's really difficult for me to rein that in right now. I'm trying.
Half the alphabet. I can't keep up. I'm not good with that stuff.
It's ridiculous.
I know. I mean, I was up to the T and then I bailed. It's like, I support the cause. I can't, it's a lot to ask for me to memorize all this stuff. I got numbers in my head, you know, it's too much. But by the way, like all joking aside, I mean, like that whole Latinx thing, come on now. Like you can't over pander and people can tell when you're being disingenuous and you're trying to over serve. And I think the problem is that the left is trying to speak to everybody's plight. And then they become so sensitive about offending anybody and their plight that, you know, everything gets sort of like, oh, well, everything gets put into a form factor. You got to say it this way. You can't say it that way, you know? And if you want true equality, and while we have to fight for humanity and human rights and all of these causes, but if you want true humanity, you got to meet people where they are. And to me, that's literally the middle class. Like if you meet people there, everything else is just a conversation away. But if you start out there, it's very hard to get to that middle.
Right. Like I said, I'm reining myself in.
Don't. I say whatever you want. I don't care.
And just trying to see what happens.
Yeah, I hear you.
No.
Yeah, but listen.
It's for me.
No,
for everyone, I think it's best.
I get it. And you call in next time. And if you want to let off a little steam, this is the place to do it. I think, look, behind closed doors, people are going to vent and yell and scream. Okay. And I'm the first one to just say it without sugarcoating it. But when it comes to having a platform and speaking to an audience and actually trying to be productive, you have to think before you speak. You just do. It'd be very easy for me to come on here and just be visceral, but that won't be productive. You know, so for me to say, what's wrong with you people? Why did you do this? Or you know, and whoever I'm talking, it doesn't work. You know, in my behind closed doors in my private life, yeah, you know, it's cathartic to vent. But I look at this platform as an opportunity for discourse. So, but you call back in and you say whatever you want. I really don't care. Like you call it, look, you like Bernie Sanders, good for you. I mean, that's cool. I mean, like at least there's somebody that has captured your interest. You know, and again, he said some stuff lately that I wish most people would pay attention to, irrespective of which party you belong to and how you choose to vote, because it makes real sense. Some people won't even come out of their corners. I don't want to listen to him. F him. I got my red hat on. You know what I mean? Like, get out of your corner. By the way, total tangent, and I'm just going to say this to be funny. I think if Uncle Orville was alive today, he'd be MAGA. That's all. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Also, why does the light go on after the toilet flushes in Carousel of Progress? Did you ever wonder that? Like he's using the toilet in the dark.
Very well pointed out. Thank you. We all needed to know that. And now every time we see that, we're going to recognize, thank you.
You had plenty of privacy. You were in the dark. Then you turn the light on. You blew up your whole spot. I understand from a show purpose, like we put the light on to signify. But the man's in the dark in the bathroom. That guy's overstayed his welcome more than Elon Musk, okay? Now we've brought it full circle.
Yeah. All right, Rose. Well, have a good day.
Take care. It was a pleasure talking to you. I love it. I love these conversations. I just want to make sure I don't hang up on myself. But it's true. It's true. He's in the dark, and then the light comes on. It makes no sense. It's been sitting that way for as long as I can remember, 253-263-1540. How can you support what we're doing here? Knocking out that gift goal on TikTok. When the show ends here, we will hop over on TikTok and do a team lift. Then we'll wrap it up, and I'll podcast everything out. The YouTube side as well, of course. And you can always go and download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and you can support the podcast by reviewing it, by rating it. So whether you're on the podcast app on your iPhone, whether you're on Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, under the influence, and you can show your support by reviewing and ranking the podcast. Of course, you can always book your trip with us on the website. We were talking about Tokyo earlier. There is a form on the website. Royces.com is the name of the website. There's merchandise. The response yesterday to the Joe Coconut Pac-Man deal was great. Thank you for your support over there. All of those packages went out yesterday, so thank you for that. So there's several different ways that you can support what we're doing. 253-263-1540. I really did want to play Fortnite last night. I really did. And then, like I said earlier, I laid down. First of all, I ordered food, okay, which is a whole nother issue because this DoorDash, you want to talk about scams, all right? They never get the order right. And then when they try to refund you, they want to give you like $2 back. I'm like, $2? That's not refunding me. So I ordered food. DoorDash messed up my order. I dealt with that. Then my phone starts blowing up because of the whole People Mover video. So then I was like, I'm just going to sit down and put my feet up for a minute, and I was going to go game. The computer was up. Everything was up and ready to go. I've been playing StarCraft a little bit, not live streaming it. But if there's anybody out there that plays StarCraft, I've been playing StarCraft a little bit. So I played a StarCraft round, did absolutely terrible. And then I'll put my feet up, and then I'll go do Fortnite, and I'll live stream it. And I put my feet up. And then when I woke up, it was like 1 a.m. So it happens, right? But I want to get into a groove where we're doing this, and then we're out into the parks. So the thought after today's show is to do just that, to get out into the parks, maybe do a nighttime show. I don't know, Fantasmic. I heard that the Remy Single Rider line is finally opened up. I saw that, so maybe we get over there. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not telling you where I'm going. I'm just talking out loud because I do like the idea of seeing Fantasmic, but I do love Epcot lit up at night. I'm also curious to see if those lights are, I don't think they're fixed. So the last time I saw this, or the last update I saw on this, I should say, the acrylic in the ground where the fountain used to be behind Spaceship Earth that was all lit up, those rings, they ripped out the acrylic because the lights were dead. Okay, brand new installation, the lights were dead. So now it looks like they put in opaque acrylic. And I'm not sure if the lights are gone for good. I have a source over there. I have to be careful about conveying that information. So I've reached out to a source to find out what's going on over there. For all I know, the lights are running. I doubt they are because everybody and their grandmother would be putting it on social media. But those lights are a prime example. Brand new feature, and they're already broken. And then you got to ask yourself, are they fixable? So I will get to the bottom of it. But again, there are people that tell me things that go on in the parks, and I just want to be careful about how I get the information and how I share it with you because I don't want anyone to get in trouble or lose their job. So part of me wants to go over to Epcot and kind of see what's going on with those lights, but there's no way they're lit up. Not if they put in opaque acrylic. Opaque acrylic signals to me that those lights aren't getting fixed anytime soon. 253-263-1540. I appreciate the support. We talk about widening this channel and widening the format and all these different things. And I think what's important for me in these conversations is starting to bring in, because again, when I started the concept for the show, it was Under the Influence was meant to bring in influencers, not just content creator influencers, not just social media influencers, But I want to get on like journalists, legislators, businessmen, and I think it'd be really cool to talk to somebody about net neutrality, about this thing with Google, and the idea of how a tech company becomes a monopoly. Because, you know, the old term, and again, this all falls under consumer advocacy. We can spend so much time talking about how Disney gouges their customers, but it's disingenuous to not highlight other areas. And there's just no consumer advocacy. So I love the idea of taking a slice of this for that. You know? It's interesting to me that in just a few weeks, I've been able to talk to folks that not only see the value in this, but that mark my words, in a few weeks we'll be making news with these folks, because I think once we start getting guests on and doing that long form, whether I choose to do it here live with you or I actually just sit down with Kenzie on the weekend and do it, or pre-record a long form interview and distribute it out in the afternoon, I think once we start pulling those clips out and sharing them on the various platforms, we'll start breaking into the news cycle. I've done it in different iterations, and I intend to do it here. But it's much more interesting to me to attempt to do those things with something along the lines of consumer advocacy as a whole. And it doesn't mean that we can't, you know, try to leverage something like that against the rivers of America. But I'd rather do something, I'd rather have conversations like that as a whole than just be so dialed into Disney. You know what I mean? Because you can actually, when it comes to consumer advocacy, affect change. Maybe Disney's not listening, but mark my words, you can affect change as a consumer advocate. And I like the idea of having folks on to talk more about this stuff. Why, in the old days of monopolies, you know, it was very easy to kind of point it out, who a monopoly is and who isn't. But why how has that not been redefined? And why is it acceptable for a company, a tech company, to have their hands in so many things? And I would argue a company like a legacy media company like Comcast is trying very hard to become a tech company. But why is it acceptable for the internet to be monopolized when most other aspects of consumerism, you know, wouldn't allow that, right? But somehow, and that's why I'm like, why is Chrome a monopoly? Like, Amazon, I don't mean to browbeat on Amazon, but it's the perfect example. They're a monopoly. Like, why aren't you forcing them to break up? Why are you trying? Now, Google's a huge company. Alphabet's a huge company. But why are you trying to force the disconnect of Google, the disconnect of Chrome from Google? Like, shouldn't you be forcing Amazon to, like, pull apart their servers? Shouldn't you be forcing Microsoft to maybe, like, pull some of their assets apart? Like, what is a monopoly in this current tech landscape, you know? Like, we got to get like a Forbes reporter on or something. I want to know. And then how does that dovetail into net neutrality? You know, because the desire for net neutrality is to make it a level playing field, okay, for content creators. Okay, I say content creators, but it's not really content creators, right? Like, the idea of net neutrality is, in layman's terms, is you're not going to get penalized for going to a competitor's website when the internet that you're on is got a website of their own, you know? In other words, if you have an ISP provider that owns a news site, net neutrality would, in theory, say that you won't get throttled going to the competitor's news site, right? So there's this overlap between monopolies and net neutrality. And that's something I'd like to be educated on. I'm not sitting here saying I have any answers, because I don't. I just know that the argument for net neutrality has been muddied over the years. And I know now, because there's such a cry for censorship on the internet, that folks that probably were against net neutrality have probably taken a different position. You know, these are the things that I want to talk about. So I say all that to say that, you know, if I can get somebody on to talk about that, I will. The one person that committed to coming on after Thanksgiving, I think she'll be a real breath of fresh air on a topic like this and maybe some other larger media topics, you know, the AI of it all and whatnot. But if you know anybody that would speak to this stuff, like, I'm all ears. Shoot me a message. 253-263-1540. I think my iPad just died. Uh-oh. Hey now. Nope, close. Too many passwords. Sorry, I had to get my phone system back up. 253-263-1540. I almost lost it. I got it back up. We are good to go. So we'll get into the park later. We'll do another one of these shows tomorrow morning, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I want you to call in. I want you to present issues to me. I've said this before as well. If there's something going on in your world, in your community, bring it to the table, you know. We've talked about Kina and what she's doing in North Carolina. By the way, yesterday we got more responses, so thank you. You can get that email address on the Discord if you want to support the effort there with Kina in North Carolina. But that's just an example of doing good, you know. And oh my gosh, why is this iPad giving me so? This iPad's telling me it's time to go. But it's just a prime example. So thank you for that. Get on the Discord, you know. Oh, my gosh. There it is. 253-263-1540. And I also noticed, like I said earlier, that YouTube video may not be correct today. Whatever. It's lagging. We'll get it solved. But you got to just go. You just got to move forward. You know, it's a long format thing. Radio is not easy. Keeping the ball in the air is not easy, you know. And you got a list of stuff to talk about. And in a case like this, you know, I'm sitting here vamping with you. And there's things I could talk about next, but there's things I want to save for tomorrow, you know. So I think the iPad's in low power mode because it's at like 10%. But I don't want to miss a call. So I think what we'll do when we wrap this up, I think what we'll do is we'll go to the parks tonight. We'll do another radio show tomorrow. And then I think what we got to do this week is a Lego Live. I've done enough Fortnite. I'm all for doing more Fortnite. I want to do a nighttime show tonight. That's top of mind. But I think we got to do another Lego Live. I love doing the Lego Lives. It's a whole different element. You know, it's very quiet. It's very mellow. But I want to do a Lego Live. And I have all of these Legos set up to be wired and triggered, much like I can do with the animatronic stuff. So I want to keep building out this Lego table. It's one of the things. It's more of the steam and stem of it all, you know. But what's fun for me about doing all that stuff is, you know, it's not really programming or coding, but it is educational. And you can laugh and go, well, how are Legos educational? But there are things you can do now with Legos and programming and the steam and the stem of it all. I talked about Sphero earlier, which is a totally different beast. But there's a type of programming now that you can do. It's very like Fisher-Pricey. I forget the terminology. I don't know if it's called ladder programming, but you know what I'm talking about, where it's like segments that you lock in. So it's like lots of little Booleans, and it's made it really accessible for kids to learn how to program. Now, I used to mess around with like Arduino and stuff like that. It's more like code and language driven. But first of all, I wish we had that stuff when I was a kid. But one of the other things I want to do, and Legos are a great point, but I want to start doing more of that STEAM and STEM stuff, these little like mini educational things. I've got the stuff to show you the animatronic kits, and that's cool. But if I can find something at IAAPA this week, like a little mini animatronic kit or some sort of little programmatic thing, and I've found things over the years, little LED light kits, and again, I've got the animatronics and the circuitry, and there's a site called Adafruit that does little circuitry. But if I could just find like a little STEAM and STEM kit, like a little ed kit that I could get, and I could do educational STEAM and STEM lives where like maybe your kid is sitting there with the kit and you're there too listening, and we're all hanging out, and doing like light coding, light robotics, using, I think it's called ladder program, whatever the term is, but it's not like full in-depth, it's just like entry-level stuff. But if I could find, and I don't know what'll be at IAPA, if anything, at this prosumer level, but if I could find like a little kit, and this might be something I have to put together myself. And in the early days of this channel, I sold a lot of my animatronic kits, 4 or 5 a week. Okay. And I didn't even go live back then. But if I could come up with something, so it might be that actually, but if I could do like a little ed kit and do like an online STEAM and STEM class, like that would be another use of this platform for good, right? You can run around the theme park all day long, but inspiring some kids to actually, get into a field that maybe they otherwise wouldn't be exposed to. That kind of reminds me of my days of teaching kids how to fix arcade games, So I'm going to be on the lookout at IAPA. I don't know. There's a company that's going to be there that is the company that actually owns a lot of the hardware that I'm utilizing for the animatronic stuff. And when I had my old business, I talked to them about doing something. So who knows? Maybe this is a full circle moment 4 years later that I talked to these folks at IAPA. But I just love the idea of a little dev kit that you can like buy. Because look, my audience is predominantly female, lots of moms, but something for the kids to do. I have these 3D printed animatronic kits. They're fun. I don't know if that's the right thing. It might be the option, or maybe it's a piece of the option or a piece of the offering, So I think about these things. I put a lot of thought into these things. Longer conversations, the STEAM and the STEM, getting back to some of my roots. That is what the DIY stood for, the do-it-yourself. It's just important to me. It's important to me to take what I built and to grow it with purpose. It's a very simple endeavor. All right? I'm already getting email responses from some of these interview requests. I just picked up my phone here. This is fantastic. 253-263-1540. 253-263-1540. I'll give you another minute. I'll hang out with you. If we don't get any more calls, I'll wrap it up a little bit early, which will only allow me to get out the door a little bit early. Once we wrap it up here, we're going to do a team lift over on TikTok. All right. We kind of talked about that yesterday. We'll wrap it up here, do a team lift over on TikTok, cut that, do the uploads, get out the door, get in the park. It'll be a good time. Now, Kina did tell me if I go attempt to ride Remy that she will buy me a brioche ice cream sandwich. So I will hold her to that. I have not had one in forever. Please, please, please open up your podcast app. Under the Influence, index it, mark it, wherever you listen to your podcast, okay? Wherever you listen to your podcast, index it, leave it a ranking, leave it a review, and we've got enough people in this audience in a year's time to put this show on the podcast leaderboard, okay? That is the goal. I'm going to wrap it up here with you all. I appreciate you. Thank you for another great show. 3.5 hours, it doesn't matter to me. Every day is a little bit different. It's more important to me to have quality conversation and to make sure that we're bringing folks together, right? The middle. There's reoccurring themes here. You're going to hear them from me time and time again. Moderation, bringing things to the middle. There's not a lot of people at the top when you talk about power. There's a lot of influence from just a few people at the top. Reoccurring themes of the show. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. Sorry if you're on YouTube. It's an evolving process over there. And I'll see you next time.